Rosemary Hubert, the daughter of an ambitious duke who views commoners only as profit, reflects on her role as a mere political tool. Known as the Villainess who doesn't want revenge, the golden-haired Rosemary presents a calm, elegant facade despite her father's cold machinations. Her life takes a sharp turn toward tragedy after she is forced into a political engagement with the crown prince. A talented maid with a tumultuous past finds her peace shattered by the echoes of a previous life. Branded as a disgraceful villainess and surrounded by the chatter of a judgmental crowd, Rosemary is led toward the gallows to face execution. Guards declare her grave sins to the public as the villainous Rosemary Hubert is presented for her final judgment. The crowd whispers in fear about her alleged treason, attempted murder, and the deception of Prince Grey. Standing before the noose, Rosemary internally denies the accusations, maintaining her innocence against the many crimes she never committed. Looking at the rope, she prepares for the end, seeing death as her only path to true escape. A faint smile touches her lips as she realizes that through this execution, she will finally be free from her burdens. The somber silence is shattered by the desperate, tearful screams of her younger brother, Ronaldo. Rosemary looks upon her dear younger brother one last time, her heart aching at his presence during her final moments. She finds a small bit of comfort being able to see him again before the execution is carried out. Ronaldo reaches out in agony, crying out for his older sister as the grim reality of the execution sets in. The executioner calls for the end, pulling the lever as the time for Rosemary's life to be extinguished arrives. As the floor drops, Rosemary's final wish is a simple prayer for her brother to live a happy life without her. The crowd's chatter is drowned out by Ronaldo's final, desperate pleas and the harsh commands of the guards. The rope snaps taut as the life of the villainous, Rosemary Hubert seemingly comes to a tragic conclusion. A heavy bell tolls across the capital, marking the death of the Duke's daughter while the crowd watches in grim silence. Suddenly, a young girl named Marie wakes up in a daze, confused by the strange memories and voices calling her name. She tumbles onto a pile of hay with a sharp cry of pain, realizing she is no longer on the gallows. A panicked man rushes to her side, calling her Marie, and asking if she is okay, leaving her to wonder who this person is. Marie is struck by how different her own voice sounds as she struggles to process her current surroundings. The man expresses his relief, having feared she would never open her eyes again after her accident. Looking at her small hands, the girl begins to realize the impossible truth of her situation. Now living as Marie Edigma, she reassures her father that she is fine, though her mind is flooded with a past life. She identifies her new family, her gentle father Tobias Edigma and her older brother Stanley, who works at the royal palace. The catalyst for regaining her memories of being Rosemary was a freak accident where a rampaging cow's rope caught around her neck. Marie muses that being reborn and regaining past memories feels like something straight out of a storybook. She acknowledges that while her soul is that of the executed Rosemary, she is now living as a completely different person. Opening her window to the fresh air, Marie decides that a peaceful, quiet life is truly the best way to live. Her brother Stanley approaches her with an important-looking envelope, telling her that there is a letter for her. Marie is surprised to see her big brother, Stanley, wondering what could possibly be in the message he's holding. To their shock, the letter bears the lion coat of arms, signifying it has come directly from the king himself. Stanley confirms the news. The royal family has sent a personal correspondence addressed specifically to Marie. Bewildered, Marie demands to know why the royal family would ever take interest in a simple girl like her. She hesitates before the seal, feeling a sense of dread as she prepares to open the royal summons. Marie sighs in frustration, labeling this unexpected contact with the palace as the worst possible development for her peaceful life. Her father Tobias enters the room, eager to see the contents of the prestigious letter. Upon reading the message, Tobias is overjoyed and proclaims the news to be absolutely amazing. The letter is a recommendation for Marie to become a royal maid, a position that places her right back in the center of the palace. Marie realizes the current crown prince, Rizel Duretza, is the child of King Grey and Queen Tia, the woman who stole her previous life. She is stunned to calculate that Rizel was born only a single year after her own execution as Rosemary. Tobias, a humble rural baron, worries that it's strange for Marie to be considered a consort candidate when there's no political benefit. Marie's bluntness stuns her father as she explains that the lack of benefit is exactly why they chose her. She explains that marriages between the crown and powerful families create dangerous conflicts within the royal palace. Marie is certain they are looking for a rural noble lady specifically because there is no political risk involved. Tired of the political games that ruined her first life, she vows not to get dragged back into the competition. Tobias laughs at her sharp wit, admitting he hadn't even thought of such complex political angles. Despite her reservations, Marie admits to herself that she is fortunate to have such a loving family in this life. Stanley points out that her own actions have fueled rumors, making her stand out more than she intended. He mentions the flawless dress she designed for her debutante, though she claims a seamstress friend helped her. Her brother also brings up how she defended a girl from the Does region by cleverly mentioning a superior to scare off a harasser. The Digma family continues to receive thanks from the Does family, and even the castle staff wants to hire her as a designer. Marie realizes her Rosemary habits are leaking out, providing the only explanation for her sophisticated behavior. Her father and brother cheer her on as she departs for the capital, while Marie internally begs herself to stop standing out. Marie watches the rural landscape fade away as her carriage carries her toward the heart of the kingdom. The carriage arrives at the gates of the royal capital, a place Marie never expected to see again. Looking out the window at the familiar spires, she is filled with disbelief at her return to this den of vipers. Duretza's castle looms over the city, a grand monument to the power that once sentenced her to death. After arriving, she is shown to her new lodgings and introduced to the other residents of the palace. Dressed in her royal maid style, Marie is quickly disgusted by how rotten and corrupt the palace has become in her absence. Her mind drifts to King Gray, her former fiancé, and Queen Tia, the woman who betrayed her to take her place. She notes that the royal couple is constantly surrounded by terrible rumors regarding their mistresses and lovers. Remembering Gray's claim that Tia taught him true love, Marie wonders who actually taught him to be such a fool. Domestic affairs turn somber as the Marquis and Duke houses clash over whose daughter will become the prince's bride. A countryside baron's daughter, Marie, feels relieved to be unrelated to these rotten power struggles while staying at the palace. Daughters from various families compete fiercely for the job of caring for the prince as potential crown prince fiancé candidates. Nikki Tajiria, the fourth daughter of Count Tajiria, finds the royal castle a great workplace despite the stupid squabbling over the prince. Marie and Nikki enjoy the perks of being castle maids, from eating delicious food to wearing the latest fashions on their days off. Nikki dismisses Marie's concerns about her lover back home, insisting that her personal life is a separate matter. Enjoying her youth, Nikki explains that waiting for marriage is popular now and she has no desire to have children so early. Nikki shifts the conversation and asks Marie if she has finally had the chance to meet Prince Rizzle yet. Marie admits she hasn't seen the prince since the first day, knowing the other predatory maids would target her if she approached their prey. The maids constantly send enthusiastic gazes at the prince, leading Marie to hope he doesn't grow to hate women entirely. Nikki suddenly grabs Marie and urges her to come take a look at the commotion happening nearby. They spot a new man in the distance, but Marie notes that such sights are just the usual occurrence at the palace. The king and queen argue over the king's notoriety and his recent choice of a new concubine. King Gray and Queen Tia continue their dispute, with Tia questioning why her infertility should be an issue. The man who condemned the fallen woman Rosemary stands face to face with the one he once judged. Since regaining memories of her past life, Marie was anxious about the possibility of meeting these two figures again. To her surprise, Marie realizes that any lingering resentment or love she once felt has completely vanished. Marie is certain that even the original Rosemary would feel no love for King Gray while watching their lovers quarrel now. Seeing the toxic dynamic between the king and queen provides Marie the final answer she needed to move on. The realization of her complete emotional detachment from her past life leaves Marie momentarily shocked. As the royal quarrel ends, Nikki warns Marie to stay quiet because you never know who might be listening in the halls. Nikki sighs about the tragic end of the passionate love she used to read about in picture books regarding the royal couple. Marie remains cold and indifferent to the romance, prompting Nikki to ask if it's better to just let dreams be dreams. Nikki teases Marie about her popularity and asks why she doesn't have a lover of her own. While most women at the palace search for high-ranking husbands, Marie remains focused on her own path. Marie wonders if her lack of interest in men stems from the trauma of Rosemary's lost love in her previous life. Instead of a sparkling prince, Marie finds herself wishing she could find a cool and loyal knight to rely on. Memories surface of the young Rosemary playing pretend knight with her beloved younger brother, Rinaldo. The image of their childhood friend, Alberto, flashes through Marie's mind as she thinks of those better days. Nikki reacts with total shock when Marie mentions Alberto's name aloud. Nikki asks in disbelief if Marie actually likes older men like the famous Alberto Macurin. Nikki explains that while Alberto is 36 and single, his most important trait is being the esteemed knight captain. Fired up by the gossip, Nikki pulls Marie along, determined to find the knight captain at his usual spot. Nikki hushes Marie as they spot the captain standing right over there under the archway. The imposing figure of the knight captain stands in his armor, exuding a serious and commanding presence. The sudden sight of the man from her memories causes Marie to gasp in surprise. Marie looks at the man and confirms that it is indeed the same Alberto she once knew. He was the childhood friend who constantly visited to play knights with Rosemary in their youth. The boy from the past has now grown into the formidable and respected knight captain of the realm. Marie gazes at him with an unreadable expression as the weight of their shared history settles over her. Nikki misinterprets Marie's emotional reaction as joy, encouraging her that she can win against any rivals for his heart. Marie tries to correct the misunderstanding, but they are interrupted by the captain noticing their presence. The knight captain stands tall and stern as the maids are caught spying on him from the shadows. Startled by his intense gaze, Marie stammers an apology for bothering him while Nikki stands frozen. The captain looms over them, demanding to know what two maids are doing in this part of the grounds. Nikki quickly invents an excuse, claiming they were waiting for an opportunity to be of help to the knights. Nikki's bold lies leave Marie absolutely horrified and confused by what her friend is saying. In a sudden jolt of energy, Nikki asks Alberto-sama if he will hire them as his personal maids for the night squadron. The knight captain stares back with a cold, piercing look that makes the atmosphere incredibly tense. Marie's heart races as she panics internally, certain that Nikki must be kidding with such an outrageous request. Overwhelmed by the absurdity of the situation, Marie wonders what on earth Nikki could be thinking. A flashback shows a young Alberto promising to become a knight for Rosemary Hubert in their childhood. Rosemary asks Alberto to protect her just like a knight from a storybook if she ever becomes queen. Though it was just a game of pretend, the young Alberto gave her a sincere and firm promise. Alberto truly desired to protect Rosemary's smile with all his heart as they grew up together. Driven by that childhood vow, Alberto worked until he finally achieved his dream of becoming a knight. The tragedy strikes as Rosemary is framed by unknown enemies and ultimately executed by the state. Living in a state of deep repentance, Alberto is one day visited by Rosemary's younger brother, Ronaldo. Ronaldo emerges from the shadows to find the grieving knight, bringing a new purpose to his life. Ronaldo Hubert declares his dark ambition to Alberto. He wants to avenge his sister Rosemary's death. Alberto Macurin is asked to lend his strength to the cause of vengeance for the fallen girl. Ronaldo possesses a terrifying, possessed look in his eyes that mirrors the intensity of his late sister's spirit. Believing it is the only way to atone, Alberto agrees to accept the devil's hand and help Ronaldo. The grim memory of Rosemary's body being left in the square for all to see haunts the survivors. Driven by a need to save her even in death, Alberto deceived the knights with a fake warrant to take her away. Two hooded figures stand in a grim, somber silence as they witness a dark scene. The perspective shifts to a close-up of a person with long hair and a dark, shadowed expression overlooking a wall. Ronaldo and his companions step forward with a blade, solemnly retrieving the body of the fallen woman. In a heartbreaking moment, they gently close the eyes of the deceased woman. The hooded man cradles the woman's body, promising to take her back home one last time. A lone horse-drawn carriage departs from the gloomy outskirts of a distant castle. Overcome with grief, the men weep as they lament their failure to protect the one they loved. The towering spires of Duretsa Castle loom large against the sky, serving as a cold reminder of their loss. Inside those stone walls, the narrative reveals a place of deep-seated pain and memory. They dwell on the bitter fact that someone within the castle robbed them of their precious loved one. A flashback shows the woman lying lifeless in a pool of blood upon the grass. The narrator concludes that no words are necessary to describe the gravity of this tragedy. The two survivors share a silent, mutual understanding of the vengeance and sorrow they both harbor. Looking upon the face of Rosemary, they swear an oath to relieve her of her lingering regrets. The carriage continues its long journey across the vast and mountainous landscape. The story transitions to the present day at the Knights' Barracks within the Duretsa Kingdom. Two young maids, Nikki and Marie, enter the bustling area with wide-eyed wonder and excitement. They walk through the noisy barracks where knights are busy preparing for the day ahead. With bright smiles, the girls cheerfully exchange morning greetings with those they pass. Outside on the training grounds, the rhythmic clang of swords echoes as knights engage in fierce practice. The maids observe the intense military atmosphere of their new workplace with fascination. Marie remarks on how incredible it feels to finally be working inside the prestigious Knights' Barracks. A knight explains that many previous maids found the environment far too barbaric and chose to quit. Standing tall, the knight welcomes them and expresses his anticipation for their future cooperation. The girls bow deeply, promising to handle every task with the utmost care and dedication. They reflect on how easily their transfer was approved, perhaps because they were no longer seen as marriage candidates for Prince Rizzle. Marie's gaze softens as she looks toward a specific person, her mind wandering to the past. She recognizes the knight as Alberto Macurin, who was once Rosemary's close childhood friend. Alberto notices Marie's stare and turns to ask if something is the matter. Marie quickly snaps out of her daze, insisting that nothing is wrong at all. Flustered, she introduces herself as Marie Edigma and reiterates her excitement to work with him. Alberto repeats her name thoughtfully, a contemplative expression crossing his face. He formally welcomes her, while Nikki watches the interaction with a curious and playful grin. And so, their busy new lives serving as maids to the knights officially begin. Though the work is demanding, the girls slowly find their rhythm and adjust to the daily grind. Nikki informs Marie that she has been specifically assigned to work in Alberto's office for the day. As Nikki heads to the training grounds, she teases Marie, who worries that her friend misunderstands her feelings. Marie arrives at the imposing doors of the captain's office, taking a nervous breath. She opens the door and politely announces her presence as she enters the room. Alberto is buried in paperwork, but he looks up to acknowledge her and welcomes her assistance. Marie struggles with the urge to call him Alberto, reminding herself to use the formal mangarecap. She offers to brew some tea, and Alberto briefly agrees without looking away from his tasks. Marie recalls that in her previous life, she and Alberto worked together closely within the royal palace. She prepares the specific tea they used to enjoy during breaks, even though he was always a workaholic. The office is filled with piles of books and documents, showing the heavy workload Alberto carries. Alberto looks visibly exhausted and gloomy as he struggles through the mountain of reports. Marie notices his poor organizational skills and hopes the tea will provide some much-needed relief. She sets the steaming cup on his desk, gently inviting him to take a moment to drink. Alberto takes a sip, immediately noticing the pleasant and familiar scent of oranges. Marie watches him intently, hoping the flavor suits his personal palate. He smiles faintly, mentioning that it has been a long time since he enjoyed a good citrus tea. Marie feels a deep sense of nostalgia, realizing she isn't the only one moved by the familiar taste. As she leaves the office, she is heartened to see that his preferences haven't changed over the years. She decides that next time, she will try making the cashew pancakes he used to love so much. The scene shifts as Marie suddenly notices something unusual out of the corner of her eye. She spots a suspicious figure in a hat and cloak sneaking through the hallway. Marie wonders if the man is one of the knights or someone she should be worried about. The man begins to panic when he realizes he has been spotted, his movements becoming frantic. Noting his high-quality clothing, Marie hesitates, wondering if she should call for security. The man quickly apologizes, desperately trying to convince her that he isn't anyone suspicious. Marie realizes this person must outrank her significantly and asks if he is searching for someone. The man reveals his identity as Prince Rizzle, leaving Marie momentarily stunned by the encounter. Alberto suddenly appears behind them, sternly asking the prince what he is doing there. Marie looks on in shock as the tension between the captain and the prince rises. The mysterious intruder is indeed Crown Prince Rizzle, and his presence spells trouble for the quiet barracks. Shocked and confused, a figure wonders why Rizzle would ever be found in a place so far beneath his standing. The observer notes with intensity that the young prince's sharp eyes and expression are a perfect mirror of King Gray's in his youth. Arriving unannounced, Rizzle offers a sincere apology to Alberto for the sudden intrusion at his doorstep. With a desperate look in his eyes, Rizzle asks if he can be hidden away for a short while. The request leaves the listener completely stunned, their face reflecting total disbelief. The narrative muses playfully on how everyone possesses a touch of madness in their own way. Rizzle Duretsa is introduced as the only son of Queen Tia and King Gray, a prince raised with meticulous and great care. Despite the royal upbringing, Rizzle has no memories of family affection because his parents shared a toxic relationship and only used him for convenience. He avoided becoming arrogant because he had one stable adult in his life whom he could actually trust. This mentor figure sternly advised the young prince to remain steadfast and never be swayed by the fickle opinions of others. Alberto, one of his dedicated escort knights, taught Rizzle that a true king must prioritize the well-being of his people above all else. Inspired by this guidance, a young Rizzle expresses his desire to be a knight like Alberto rather than a prince, though the knight reminds him his royal destiny is inescapable. Rizzle then asks if Alberto will at least swear allegiance to him as his personal knight. With a heavy heart, Alberto refuses, revealing that his loyalty has already been sworn to someone else. Duke Rinaldo enters the scene, ruffling the prince's hair and telling him he shouldn't be troubling Alberto. Rizzle greets Rinaldo with a bright smile as the Duke offers a polite greeting to both the prince and the knight. Duke Rinaldo is the second adult Rizzle trusts, a man whose political skill and economic contributions to the nation are deeply admired by the prince. Rinaldo asks if the prince can spare some time once his conversation with Alberto has concluded. Commending Rizzle's knowledge of the country, Rinaldo mentions finding something of interest in the National Archives. The Duke explains that he discovered a book hidden in the back of the library containing obscure national history. He reveals that the records mentioned a person named Rosemary Hubert. Rinaldo's demeanor shifts instantly to cold fury as he warns Rizzle never to speak that name again. Terrified by the sudden hostility, the young prince flinches in shock. Maintaining a forced smile, Rinaldo excuses himself and tells Alberto they will speak another time. Rizzle reflects on how he didn't realize at the time that the two men were guarding a massive secret. However, the experience taught him a lasting lesson never to pry into that forbidden topic again. In the present, the maid Marie Edigma is asked to bring tea for the visitors. The staff observes that Prince Rizzle appears to be a frequent visitor to this location. The narrator assumes the warm hospitality and pre-prepared cookies are a direct result of Rizzle's regular presence. Marie Edigma introduces herself and offers a humble apology for her previous rude remarks. Rizzle graciously thanks her, noting that she remained polite even while he was in his current disheveled state. The staff whispers about how remarkably different Rizzle is from his father, who never cared for the people. Alberto warns Rizzle that he shouldn't leave the castle so carelessly, as the guards are likely searching for him. Taking a sip of tea, Rizzle admits that the uptight nature of the palace makes him feel like he's going insane. The palace is described as a predatory environment where numerous maids are constantly aiming to marry the prince. Rizzle retorts that he doesn't want to hear marriage advice from a man who is forever single. The prince offers a snack to the maid, who politely declines the informal gesture. Rizzle chuckles at how serious everyone around him seems to be. The observer prays that Rizzle won't be corrupted, noting that he inherited his gentle smile from his mother. Rizzle's expression darkens as he resolves that he never wants to end up like his father or mother. He clenches his hand, stating firmly that he has no interest in finding a fiancée. Alberto sighs and agrees that they don't need more people like the current king and queen wasting the nation's money. The maid is shocked that Alberto is speaking so poorly of the royals right in front of the prince, but Rizzle simply agrees. Alberto argues that the current situation is exactly why the prince needs to take action. He urges Rizzle to take strong steps and marry quickly to consolidate his power. The maid reflects on how this talk of forced marriage and choosing a maid reminds her of a specific past event. It is revealed that Queen Tia herself was once a common maid. In a flashback, a young Tia Danzas announces she will be taking care of those around her. Tia was known for hurling insults every time she looked at Rosemary. The narrative recounts how King Gray had fallen in love with Tia before anyone could realize what was happening. There is a somber reflection on how things might have changed if only Rosemary had pushed back a little more. Rizzle expresses a deep-seated fear of repeating the same mistakes his father made. The fact that his mother was a maid is a heavy burden on the prince's mind. The narrative suggests this history is the primary reason for the fractured state of his parents' current relationship. Sitting in solitude, Rizzle repeats his vow that he will not become like his father no matter what. The maid watches the prince in silence, her expression filled with a mix of concern and understanding. Looking at him, she asks for permission to speak for a moment. Blank page. She mentions that because she was a related individual in her previous life, she has perspective to offer. Rizzle grants her leave to speak as she prepares to give the prince a piece of honest advice. She confirms that his father's mistake was exactly what the prince suspects. The mistake was developing romantic feelings for a maid while already being engaged to another woman. Rizzle listens intently as the truth of his family's past is laid bare. The prince looks up with a sharp, questioning gaze. Rizzle asks if she means to tell him that his other concerns and the path he is taking are wrong. A noble figure reflects on the weight of one's choices, admitting that despite his lack of a formal royal position, every decision carries a heavy price. She asserts that the only true mistakes are those made impulsively, without any regard for the potential consequences that follow. A nostalgic vision suggests that things might have been different if King Gray hadn't reached out to help Tia. The bitter feud between the Rosemary and Queen Tia factions eventually corrupted the royal government, disrupting the balance held by Count Danzas and Duke Hubert. When confronted about the political instability, a man erupts in fury, accusing his critic of trying to destroy the happiness he and Tia share. As he is told to prioritize the suffering citizens of the Hubert domain over his own heart, the man screams for silence. The narrator observes that unlike the previous king, Prince Rizzle possesses the common sense required to avoid drowning the kingdom in chaos. There is hope that Rizzle will choose a wife for the sake of his people, ensuring he does not repeat the tragic mistakes of King Gray. She looks on as a group of potential candidates are brought in as maids, realizing how difficult it will be to select the right one. The narrator believes that Rizzle will find a woman he truly loves who will also cherish the country, unlike his own parents. She offers a silent prayer for the prince's future happiness with whichever lady he eventually chooses to stand by his side. Prince Rizzle stands in stunned silence, his wide eyes fixed on the young woman before him. Panicking at the sudden, heavy tension in the room, she realizes she may have said something incredibly reckless. She immediately bows and offers a frantic apology, terrified that she has overstepped her boundaries as a servant. Prince Rizzle stares at her with intense focus, softly uttering the name Miss Marie Edigma. Blushing deeply, the prince hesitantly asks if it would be all right for him to simply call her Marie. She stands completely frozen, her mind blank with shock at his unexpected request. A massive question mark hangs over her head as she reels from the confusion, wondering what could have prompted such a question. While she laments making a massive mistake, the prince smiles warmly, his heart clearly moved in a different direction than she intended. With a sudden burst of passion, Rizal admits he was captivated by her strong words and wants to know everything about her. She stands in a daze while he acknowledges that his sudden interest may seem impulsive and unbelievable to her. Desperate and sweating, she internally screams, wondering how her advice could have possibly backfired this spectacularly. The grim memory of his parents murdering Rosemary resurfaces, making the idea of being favored by the prince feel both wonderful and dangerous. She politely thanks him but tries to steer the conversation back to his duty of selecting a proper noble fiancé. Rizal looks down, his expression unreadable as he prepares to double down on his feelings. Gripping his uniform, the prince declares that listening to her has only made him more certain that he wants to be close to her. Her heart thumps wildly as he leans in, staring directly into her eyes with unwavering intensity. She bows her head and pleads for him to stop, but the prince only thanks her for the very words that have emboldened him. She internally calls him a stupid prince, desperately begging him to reconsider and not choose a simple, countryside girl, for the sake of the people. To her horror, Rizal smiles with total confidence, claiming the people would be happy if she were the one he chose. She demands to know on what possible basis he could be so certain of such a scandalous claim. A man nearby interjects, asking the prince if he realizes he is putting the girl in an incredibly difficult position. Rizal looks suddenly saddened, realizing his advances might actually be causing her genuine distress. Watching his adorable, crestfallen reaction, she begins to understand exactly why King Grey fell for Queen Tia so easily. She clenches her fists, reminding herself that they have only just met and must maintain their proper distance. The prince asks for her acceptance, but she insists that her position as a maid forbids her from acting on any personal greed. The screen fades to black as she prepares to deliver her final, firm rejection. She looks him in the eye and tells him that his straightforward way of speaking is far too much for her to handle. Rizal looks vulnerable as she confesses that she couldn't help but be attracted to him, calling him a boy in her mind. She admits she would have already fallen for him if he weren't the son of the very people who ruined her past life. She offers a sincere apology, noting that while Rizal has done nothing wrong, some things are simply impossible to overcome. Rizal reaches out his hand, taking the blame upon himself and telling her that he is the one who should be sorry. The prince gently squeezes her hand, calling her Marie as she looks up in wide-eyed surprise. He apologizes for the uncomfortable feelings his selfish desire has caused her, though his touch remains tender. She is left speechless, her face flushing as his sincerity pierces through her defenses. She marvels at how naturally the prince can display such affection, wondering what kind of person he truly is. From the lounge, a man observes them, noting that this is the first time he has ever seen the prince act this way. The man offers her a cup of tea, and she thanks him as she tries to settle her racing heart. She gulps down the delicious tea and thanks Makurin-sama for his unexpected kindness and gentleness. Makurin asks if she has any interest in vying for the position of the crown prince's fiancé, but she rejects the idea instantly. With a solemn look, she reflects that her past life's experience with royalty was more than enough to last her a lifetime. She admits that Prince Rizal has a nice face and isn't a bad person, but her mind remains unchanged. She concludes that her deep-seated dislike for the royal life is something she simply cannot change. Accepting her answer, Makurin-sama promises to talk to the prince on her behalf to help resolve the situation. He remarks that it is a shame for someone of her ability to live as a maid, but tells her not to worry. He notes that few women possess her ability to speak solely for the benefit of the country rather than themselves. Makurin smiles warmly at her, acknowledging that her ideas and her spirit are truly great. As he looks at her, he is struck by how much she reminds him of Rosemary's lingering memories. He closes his eyes, thinking to himself that Makurin-sama has grown into a truly wonderful individual. She admits to feeling a sense of lonely grief, having become someone else while the world moved on without her. He warns her that if Rizal is pushed too far and takes drastic measures, she must be prepared for the fallout. She realizes with a start that as a commoner, she cannot easily decline a public proposal from a prince. She hopes that Prince Rizal is the type of man who will choose to respect her true feelings. She fears that if things continue as they are, others will try to force the marriage regardless of her opinion. She shudders at the thought of being driven back into a world of conspiracies, just like her previous life. Alberto gently pats Marie's head, reassuring her that he will find a way to make the prince give up. Looking directly into Marie's eyes, Alberto promises they will work everything out to ease her worries. Marie looks up at Alberto with deep gratitude, calling him by name as a blush creeps onto her face. Standing tall in the room, Alberto maintains a protective presence over Marie as she sits composed in her maid uniform. A tearful Marie offers a heartfelt smile, thanking Alberto repeatedly for his unwavering support. Alberto strokes his chin in thought, asking Marie for permission to consult an acquaintance regarding her situation. Taken aback, Marie questions the identity of this mysterious acquaintance Alberto mentions. Alberto explains he needs a partner who thinks outside the box to find a solution for her. With a serious expression, Alberto reveals the person he has in mind is Duke Ronaldo Rose. The name strikes Marie like a physical blow, leaving her completely stunned and speechless. Marie's eyes widen in shock as the name Ronaldo echoes through her mind. Memories resurface of Rosemary and her younger brother, the original bond that defined her past. A flashback depicts a young Ronaldo Hubert at age 12, screaming out for his sister in agony. The tragic silhouette of Rosemary's execution hangs in the air, marking the end of Ronaldo's childhood. Young Ronaldo's face is contorted in a silent, tearful scream as he witnesses the horror of his sister's death. Following the execution, the Hubert family is stripped of their title, demoted to viscounts, and their lands divided. The once proud Hubert clan loses its strength, leaving the oldest son to inherit a life of shame. 10 years of silence pass before the gears of fate finally begin to turn again. Small tribes scattered around Dureza unite to launch a fierce attack on the northern part of the country. The newly crowned King Grey orders his knights to recapture the northern territories, but the campaign fails. Amidst the chaos, a hero emerges to reclaim the lands, Ronaldo Hubert himself. Using his brilliant intelligence, Ronaldo secretly negotiates with foreign powers to corner the tribal chief. In a sudden, ruthless move, Ronaldo beheads the chief to end the rebellion instantly. Alongside Alberto, the deputy officer of the second unit, Ronaldo drives the tribes into total turmoil. Alberto and Ronaldo fight side by side, successfully driving back the invaders with overwhelming force. For his incredible achievement, Ronaldo is granted a new title and the northern lands as his own territory. Ronaldo discards his past by renaming himself Ronaldo Rose to ensure he never forgets his past mistakes. Alberto remembers Ronaldo's cold smile when he spoke of those past mistakes. Alberto realizes that Ronaldo is still haunted by the memory of Rosemary's execution. Turning back to the present, Alberto reflects on how Ronaldo uses his name as a constant reminder of his loss. Ronaldo Rose, now the ruler of the northern region, stands celebrated as a national hero. Behind the hero's mask lies a dark truth. Ronaldo orchestrated the rebellion himself to seize power. The calculated nature of Ronaldo's rise suggests a grander, more dangerous scheme in motion. Every move Ronaldo makes is driven by a singular, dark purpose. For Rosemary Juanisama's sake. Alberto stares intensely, telling Marie that she has no reason to be worried with him involved. As Marie falls into a dazed state, Alberto plans to use Ronaldo's brilliance to handle Prince Rizal's favor. Marie spirals into a panic, her mind spinning at the realization that her brother is now Duke Rose. Despite her previous life, Marie Digma currently works as a simple maid for the knights. She carries the memories of being executed as a villainess for conspiring against the country. Now reunited with Alberto, her childhood friend from her previous life, she faces a complicated new reality. Alberto decides to use his day off to invite Ronaldo out for a much-needed discussion. Alberto asks Marie to deliver the letter, and she complies with a forced, cheerful smile. Marie stares at the envelope addressed to Ronaldo Rose, her heart heavy with the weight of the past. She wonders if the Hubert family truly no longer exists in this new era. Determined to face her past, Marie prepares to meet the man who was once her younger brother. Shadows of her previous life loom over her as she walks through the Knights' headquarters. Marie's mind flashes back to the harsh words and cold treatment she endured in her youth. A memory of her parents' anger resurfaces, recalling how they treated her like a filthy child. 8-year-old Rosemary Hubert weeps in the past, wondering why her family is always fighting. In her memory, she spots a dazed young boy standing alone in the grand hallway. Approaching the boy, young Rosemary asks if he is okay and if he arrived with her father. She learns they are 4 years apart, making her the elder sister to the young Ronaldo. The young boy shyly introduces himself as Ronaldo, looking up at her with wide, curious eyes. Rosemary gives him a radiant smile, welcoming him and introducing herself with warmth. Though Ronaldo was an illegitimate child, Rosemary is overjoyed to finally have a younger brother. She pulls him into a tight embrace, declaring that he is now her most cherished person. Ronaldo, coming from a life of abandonment, can only manage a tearful, "Thank you, Juanisama." Overwhelmed with happiness, the young boy sobs into his sister's arms, feeling loved for the first time. Their bond was much deeper than anyone could have imagined, defining both of their lives. Back in the maids' dorms, Marie lies awake, worried about what Ronaldo has become since her death. Tears stream down her face as she whispers a prayer of thanks that he is at least still alive. She struggles with the irony of him using the name of the Villainess, who was his sister. Marie wonders how Ronaldo would react if he ever discovered that Rosemary had been reborn. She fears his lingering attachment is a sign that he still holds a deadly grudge against the country. The weight of her secret and the impending meeting leaves Marie wondering what the future holds. Overwhelmed with emotion, the woman confesses she is happy yet scared to meet Ronaldo. Trembling in bed, she admits that a potential meeting fills her with a deep sense of dread. The woman stares vacantly, terrified of what she might do if confronted by her past. Far away, the imposing castle in the north stands cold against the mountain backdrop. Footsteps echo through the stone corridors as a lone figure walks with purpose toward the exit. A sharp-featured man announces his departure for the royal capital, heading toward the place where she was killed. The man kneels before a memorial, offering a somber greeting to Rosemary. He gazes at the stone and reveals his dark obsession with finding the perfect way to eliminate her killers. The man's thoughts turn sadistic as he weighs the merits of the gallows versus decapitation. He considers forced labor as a viable alternative, kneeling in cold deliberation before the monument. With a chilling smile, he asks the late Rosemary which method of execution she would prefer. He declares himself finally ready, needing only to finalize the method of his vengeance. The heavy tolling of a bell signals that it is time for him to depart his grim vigil. The man strides away from the sanctuary as the bell continues to echo through the arched hall. The sound of the bell resonates deeply, marking the beginning of a dark journey. A close-up of a sharp, determined eye reveals the intensity of the man's resolve. A few days later, the scene shifts to a different castle under a clear sky. Alberto explains to the young woman that Ronaldo suggested meeting at a cafe to avoid suspicions of a secret plot. The woman is bursting with excitement, thrilled to finally be outside the castle walls after so long. Alberto watches her enthusiastic reaction with a look of mild surprise. He offers to buy her anything she likes, but she shyly tries to decline his generosity. A light chuckle breaks the tension as they enjoy their time in the city. The woman teases Alberto, calling him a womanizer for his smooth and gallant behavior. She reflects privately on her previous life, remembering how nervous he used to be around women. She marvels at how much Alberto has changed in the 20 years since her death. The woman realizes that if Alberto has changed, then Ronaldo must be different now as well. The pair approaches a charming, rustic building nestled among the trees. Alberto points toward their destination as they walk through the scenic garden. They enter the establishment, passing other patrons as they are led inside. The interior is elegant and spacious, featuring a large round table set for a private meeting. Alberto takes a menu and asks the woman what she would like to drink. Impressed by the fine room, she realizes Alberto must be a regular and requests herbal tea. Seeing her stiff posture, Alberto kindly tells her to relax, but she remains visibly flustered. The woman begins to tremble uncontrollably, unable to shake her mounting anxiety. She forces a smile while acknowledging to herself that relaxing is currently impossible. She tries to focus on the tea, noting its wonderful aroma to calm her nerves. She agrees with Alberto, trying her best to appear composed in the nice setting. Alberto takes a sip of his tangerine tea as the woman watches him closely. She notes that he seems to truly enjoy the drink, finding a small moment of peace. Suddenly, the heavy door to the private room swings open. The sharp sound of a boot hitting the floor cuts through the quiet atmosphere. A mysterious, hooded figure cloaked in black enters the room, catching the woman off guard. The man lowers his hood to reveal a stern, cold face that radiates intensity. He stands at the entrance, his presence immediately dominating the small gathering. The woman gasps in shock, recognizing the man as Duke Ronaldo. Tears begin to well in her eyes as Alberto looks on with concern. Startled by her sudden outburst, Alberto asks why she is crying. The woman weeps openly, unable to explain the surge of emotion triggered by Ronaldo's appearance. Seeing him again brings back a flood of memories from her past life as Rosemary. Visions of their childhood return, showing a younger Ronaldo happily embracing his one-ni-sama. The memory shifts to a darker time, with Ronaldo visiting her behind prison bars. In the memory, he desperately begged her to just be happy, despite her dire circumstances. The woman weeps into her hands, realizing that Ronaldo's current face is far from happy. She is haunted by the transition from his warm childhood smile to his current icy gaze. Overwhelmed by guilt, she silently apologizes, believing she is the reason for his misery. The woman feels Rosemary's original feelings welling up and taking control of her heart. Alberto watches in stunned silence, completely unsure of how to handle her breakdown. Ronaldo stands motionless, his expression unreadable as he observes her grief. The woman's cries continue unabated, leaving the two men in a tense, awkward standoff. She continues to sniffle and sob, unable to regain her composure in the Duke's presence. Panic sets in as she frantically wonders how to handle this disastrous encounter. She berates herself for crying the moment she saw him, desperately searching for an excuse. She considers lying and saying he reminds her of her family, but knows the explanation is weak. She realizes that Alberto likely knows her actual family history, making any lie easy to catch. Ronaldo finally asks what happened, but she can only beg them not to worry about her. Marie beams with a radiant smile, politely excusing herself while insisting she is perfectly fine now. Ronaldo remains composed yet cautious, suggesting they continue their conversation while internally planning his next move. Marie determines to use silence as her greatest weapon, feigning ignorance behind a practiced, pleasant expression. She cheerfully notes that it is impolite to press a woman about her tears twice, successfully ending the awkward line of questioning. A mysterious, light-haired man watches the scene unfold with a cold, analytical gaze. Marie maintains her forced smile despite the visible sweat of nervousness on her face. The three characters gather around a table in a formal room to officially begin their meeting. Marie reflects on how much Ronaldo's voice has changed, mourning the loss of the cute tone he had as a child. The conversation shifts toward Prince Rizal, who apparently has taken a significant liking to Marie. Ronaldo asks if she truly struggles to handle the prince's affection, noting that the royal appears very serious. Ronaldo fixes her with a piercing, cold stare while asking if anyone else has noticed her predicament. Marie flinches visibly, caught off guard by the intensity of his interrogation. Ronaldo explains that few people are allowed near his office, a fact that also concerned the prince. He points out that while the prince has kept his distance recently, it is only a matter of time before their connection is discovered. Marie worries that meeting openly would only bring negative consequences to her life. A flashback shows Prince Rizal entering a room with a cheerful greeting, using his associate as a convenient excuse to visit. Marie politely greets the prince as he sits with Ronaldo in his office. The memory shifts to a brief moment involving Marie and the royal visitor. The prince offers a warm smile, expressing his genuine happiness at being able to meet her again that day. He presents her with a red begonia, a flower that carries the heavy meaning of a confession of love. Marie gasps in a sudden flush of heat, her face turning bright red at the blatant romantic gesture. Back in the present, she wonders how the prince can profess his love so naturally while she remains unsure of how to respond. Ronaldo confirms her desire to refrain from becoming the prince's fiancé, seeking absolute clarity on her stance. He suggests a different path, asking what would happen if she simply accepted the prince's words with sincerity. Ronaldo leans in, pointing out that she has immense wealth and power within her reach if she would only accept the beautiful prince. Marie feels his intense observation as he tries to discern whether or not she is lying about her lack of ambition. He brings up the Enigma territory overseen by her father, noting its lack of wealth. Ronaldo poses a hypothetical scenario, beginning his calculated persuasion. He suggests that marrying the prince would allow her father to live in comfort, watching her reaction closely. Marie is horrified, realizing Ronaldo is using the same despicable, manipulative tactics as his father, whom he once hated. She recognizes this as a deliberate provocation intended to shake her up and shift the negotiations in his favor. A dark shadow falls over Marie's face as she processes the betrayal of his character. She counter-argues that her father is retired and disinterested in politics or expanding their territory. Marie smiles confidently, adding that her brother only wants to live in the capital and has no interest in managing their lands. Ronaldo admits she is a tough nut to crack, acknowledging that even his preparation wasn't enough to sway her. The tension hangs heavy in the air as the two remain locked in their stalemate. Ronaldo suddenly shifts his position, moving closer to her across the table. Marie is startled by his sudden movement, nervously questioning why he is approaching her. A close-up captures Ronaldo's hand reaching out toward her in a dominant gesture. He looms over her, declaring that she doesn't seem to understand her own value. Marie is stunned and confused, struggling to comprehend the meaning behind his aggressive statement. Ronaldo wears a dark, predatory smirk while offering to cooperate with her if she continues to refuse the crown. He questions if she has inside information proving it would be useless to marry the only prince in the country. Marie stares back at him in silence, her expression unreadable as the stakes of the conversation escalate. She reels in disbelief, wondering if this calculating man is truly the same Ronaldo she once knew. He promises to make her ambitions come true if she insists on avoiding marriage. Marie realizes he is like a snake constricting its prey, attempting to use her for his own personal gains. Ronaldo grins, believing she will fall right into the palm of his hand as he repeats his offer of cooperation. Anger flares in Marie's eye as she reaches her breaking point with his condescending attitude. She stands abruptly, preparing to reject his distorted view of her. Visions of the kind, loving Ronaldo from the past clash with the manipulative man standing before her now. Ronaldo looks on with a smug, curious expression, unfazed by her sudden change in demeanor. Marie clenches her fist in the tablecloth, unable to forgive him for becoming someone she doesn't recognize. She slams her hands onto the table with a violent force that echoes through the room. Losing her temper completely, she screams at Ronaldo to knock it off immediately. She begins to shout her refusal to accept his current behavior. Marie demands to know why he is acting exactly like the father he used to despise. She stands tall, berating him for his attitude and for looking at people as if they were merely tools for his use. Her fury is palpable as she declares his current personality to be identical to his father's. She hammers home the comparison, disgusted by the transformation he has undergone. Exhausted by her outburst, she internally questions when the last time was that she felt this kind of anger toward him. She recalls that as a child, Ronaldo would never retaliate when he was cursed at or bullied. Instead, he would do whatever he possibly could to retaliate against those who made fun of Marie. Rosemary used to scold him for it, acting as a protective older sister who cared deeply for her brother. Coming back to the present, Marie is left breathless and stunned by the weight of her own memories. The tension in the room reaches a breaking point as a maid, a knight, and a nobleman sit in a heavy, silent standoff. Marie's eyes widen in sheer terror as she realizes she has made a catastrophic mistake, her face flushing with sudden panic. Trembling, Marie covers her mouth in shock while the knight, Alberto, gazes at her with a look of stunned disbelief. Driven by a desperate need for change, the young Ronaldo grits his teeth and vows to earn the wealth necessary to alter his fate. The tragic death of his sister, Rosemary Hubert, leaves Ronaldo crushed with regret and a burning desire to clear her name. Determined to rise, Ronaldo strategically uses the property entrusted to him by his late sister as a powerful investment. By forcing his money to work for him, Ronaldo successfully secures a massive hoard of gold to fuel his grand ambitions. Ronaldo stares into the distance, acknowledging the fall of the Hubert name while preparing to seize a new, higher position. In a masterstroke of manipulation, he supports a neighboring tribe's rebellion and frames himself as the nation's savior. His scheme pays off with the prestigious title of Duke, and he chooses the name Ronaldo Rose to honor his sister. Fueling his rise with vengeance, Ronaldo prepares to destroy Grey Durezza and Tia Danzas, the ones responsible for his sister's death. Entering the political arena, he uses his wealth and connections to systematically strip the Danzas clan of their influence. The Duke watches from the shadows, knowing his plan is just beginning as he sets his sights on their child, Rizal Durezza. Ronaldo commands Alberto to use a soft touch with Prince Rizal, beginning a subtle infiltration of the young boy's life. As predicted, the manipulation bears fruit, leading to a bitter and destructive conflict between Queen Tia and King Grey. A dark, satisfied smirk crosses Ronaldo's face as he watches the royal couple's downfall unfold exactly as planned. With cold eyes, the Duke mocks their former desire for happiness and wishes them a lifetime of wallowing in misery. In the palace halls, mysterious figures remark on how troublesome Queen Tia's unreasonable demands have become. The nation's shamans grumble about being ordered to curse the king's mistresses, insisting they only work for the country's betterment. High-ranking shamans, known only to the elite, hold the power to predict the future and protect the realm from disaster. Ronaldo remains skeptical, noting that if such prophecies were real, their nation would have already conquered the world. Despite his doubts, the Duke approaches the shamans in a grand courtyard to test the limits of their legendary powers. Ronaldo presents himself as an emissary of the royal family, concealing his personal interest behind a polite, formal request. With a calm and unsettling smile, he asks the shamans if they truly possess the power to recall dead souls to the world. The shamans exchange a grim, knowing look as they weigh the weight of the Duke's dark and impossible question. The narrative shifts back to the present, focusing on a quiet estate where the past and future are about to collide. In the present day, Marie is paralyzed by the sudden realization that she has acted out of turn in front of Ronaldo. Alberto leans in with a look of intense, desperate hope, asking the maid the one question she fears most, "Are you Rosemary?" Marie squeezes her eyes shut, realizing that to protect her peaceful life, she has no choice but to lie to them both. The knight demands to know why she called Ronaldo by his name if she isn't his sister, while Marie tries to play it off as a misunderstanding. The slip of the tongue leaves Marie in a state of panic, as the name Ronaldo had come out with such instinctive force. Marie begs the knight to stop using honorifics for her, while Alberto insists that her behavior proves she is Rosemary. The knight is devastated by her denial, looking at Marie with the same pained expression he once wore for the original Rosemary. A wide shot of the room captures the awkward, heavy silence as Marie struggles to find a way out of the knight's suspicion. The Duke watches silently as Marie thinks to herself that being caught would mean the end of her peaceful life with her family. Trying to deflect, Marie asks if they are referring to the Duke's deceased sister, desperately attempting to distance herself from the name. She scoffs at the idea of reincarnation, internally scrambling to come up with a logical lie that explains her outburst. Marie blurted out that Rosemary's ghost must have temporarily possessed her body to speak those words, claiming she was unconscious. Ronaldo admits that her explanation truly shocked him, while Marie hopes this ridiculous lie is enough to save her. The Duke looks at her with a gentle, terrifying gaze and declares that she truly is the reincarnation of his older sister. As Marie gasps in shock, Ronaldo reveals a jute bag containing a lock of his late sister's hair. Ronaldo confesses that after her death, he actually asked a shaman to reincarnate her, though he never believed it would work. Marie is stunned by the mention of a shaman, inwardly screaming that the Duke must be lying about such a taboo request. She reasons that shamans only obey the king and queen, making it impossible for a single duke's house to command them. Furthermore, she knows the nation would never reincarnate Rosemary, who was officially branded as an enemy of the nation. Marie's mind races, questioning how Ronaldo could have possibly made such a request without being part of the royal family. A heavy silence falls over the table as the characters lock eyes, each hiding their own deep secrets and motivations. Ronaldo lets out a dark, knowing smirk, enjoying the confusion and fear he has sown in the maid's heart. Marie gasps, realizing she has fallen into a carefully constructed trap as the Duke's eyes pierce through her facade. The Duke turns to Alberto, asking when he first learned of the shaman's existence, knowing the secret is strictly guarded. Alberto reveals he learned of them after becoming captain of the Knights, while Ronaldo notes that Marie accepted the news far too easily. Ronaldo points out that Marie reacted as if she knew about the shamans all along, which is impossible for a simple maid. The trap closes as Ronaldo reminds her that only the king's fiancé knew of the shamans, and Rosemary held that position. Overcome with emotion, Ronaldo pulls Marie into a tight embrace, weeping as he finally confesses his love for his sister. He begs to look at her face again, relishing the fact that he can finally hold the person he has missed for so long. In the aftermath of the embrace, the question of whether she is truly Rosemary hangs heavily in the air. Marie remains silent, her face a mask of conflict as she is forced to confront the identity she tried so hard to bury. Finally, the wall of lies crumbles as Marie looks at him and simply says, "Yes." Alberto drops to one knee in a gesture of profound loyalty and relief, acknowledging his true mistress has returned. The knight bows his head in silence, the weight of years of mourning finally lifting from his shoulders. On the table, the tea sits untouched, a silent witness to the world-changing revelation that just occurred. Ronaldo admits with a smile that his story about the shamans was just a bluff to force her hand. Alberto looks on, sweating, admitting that even if it was a bluff, Ronaldo is the kind of man who could have actually pulled it off. The Duke grins with a mixture of triumph and genuine joy, having finally reclaimed the one thing he valued most. Marie stands still, her expression unreadable as she accepts her fate as the reincarnated Rosemary Hubert. A lingering question marks the end of a chapter as the mysterious words, "Who knows?" hang in the air. A formal address to a lady sets a tone of high-stakes respect and hidden history. Marie-sama and Makurin-sama exchange tense words as a desperate plea to continue a conversation is met with a request for a simpler title. Lowering himself in a profound gesture, the man begs for the chance to swear his eternal allegiance once again. Blushing and stunned, Marie listens as he asks to be called Alberto, just as he was in their shared past. The urgency of their connection grows as he insists on arranging a secret meeting for later that very day. Staring in wide-eyed realization, Marie feels the weight of his words, which sound like a man terrified of losing her for a second time. Overjoyed by their long-awaited reunion, he hopes with all his heart that this meeting will not be their last. The demand for another meeting today is repeated, emphasizing the absolute necessity of their continued contact. The haunting echoes of his fear resonate once more, underscoring his desperation to never let her go again. A sudden shift in perspective reveals how meeting with Ronaldo has completely upended and transformed her entire life. A shocking outburst follows as a companion screams to know what on earth happened between Marie and Makurin-sama while they were apart. Panicked and flustered, Marie tries to hush the loud questioning before the entire world hears their business. The morning light brings a new encounter as Marie is addressed with formal respect once again. Grinning broadly, the man greets her and remarks that yesterday's intense events clearly weren't just a dream. Marie reacts with explosive shock, her face contorting as she reels from his casual mention of their private history. Desperate to avoid a scandal, she begs him to stop saying such suggestive things that could lead to a massive misunderstanding. He retreats into a cute sulk, but even his apology feels heavy with the weight of their complex bond. Marie tries to flee into her work to escape the mounting chaos, while her friend vibrates with frantic, uncontained excitement. Worrying about the dangers of speaking in public, Marie realizes she must confront her friend about these secrets later. The scene shifts to the commander's office, where a sharp command for attention signals the start of a serious discussion. Standing firm while serving tea, Marie reminds him that she is not the Rosemary of his past and that he holds a far higher station. The man at the desk offers a simple, stoic acknowledgement of her words while the tension in the room simmers. With a blissful and radiant smile, he completely ignores her protest and declares that Marie is his maid. He lays down the law, stating that the use of such distant honorifics from this morning will no longer be tolerated. Marie's request for distance is flatly denied as he looks her in the eye and tells her that such a thing is impossible. He doubles down on his devotion, explaining that his behavior is because she is the very one he swore his life to. A sharp glare from Marie meets his casual transition as he shifts the conversation to a much more dangerous topic. With a sudden cough, he leans in and asks the burning question. When exactly did she regain her memories of their past life? Marie's eyes fill with the weight of secrets she has carried in silence for far too long. She reflects on the many things she knew but shouldn't have, including a mysterious book written in a language she had never seen. The truth finally surfaces as she reveals that her awakening happened about half a year ago. It was only recently that she fully grasped the reality that these fragmented visions were actually Rosemary's memories. She keeps the darker details hidden, knowing that the truth of her past life's end would only cause Alberto immense pain. He stands abruptly, looming over her with an intense presence as he demands that she understand his true feelings. Even as she notes how truly happy he looks, she remains hesitant to fully accept the depth of his affection. The timing of their reunion feels like a twist of fate, driven by a series of events she is still trying to process. In a moment of stark clarity, Marie looks him in the eye and insists that she is Marie, not the woman he once knew. He admits his awareness of the change, conceding that just as she has changed, he is a different man as well. He asserts that he is no longer the same Alberto from her memories, suggesting they are both starting anew. Marie recognizes the truth in his words, seeing that the boy from her past has indeed grown into a fine, capable adult. With a dramatic flourish, he vows to use his increased strength and abilities to easily protect her now. Marie pushes back, arguing that a simple baron's daughter and maid is in no position to be protected by him. He shuts down her argument instantly, declaring that her social position is irrelevant because his loyalty lies only with her. While her heart is moved by his devotion, she can't help but feel that his intense protection is going to be a lot of trouble. Fearing the spread of scandalous rumors, they agree that their next meeting with Ronaldo must be held in absolute secrecy. He gives her strict instructions to stay hidden and return her horse inconspicuously to avoid any prying eyes. Marie moves through the shadows, the sound of her movement muffled as she executes the plan for their secret rendezvous. The rattling of a distant carriage breaks the silence of the woods, making her wonder if her hiding spot is truly safe. Concealed in the brush, she watches the approach of a mysterious vehicle while the woods echo with the sound of movement. Her heart stops as a carriage appears out of nowhere, leading her to panic about what such a vehicle is doing so far out. The rhythmic clopping of hooves fills her with dread as she fears they have been discovered by agents of the royal palace. Alberto bursts onto the scene on horseback, calling out to Marie-sama as they both stare at the encroaching carriage. He identifies the carriage as the one Ronaldo uses for stealthy movement, even though their meeting wasn't supposed to be yet. A tense silence follows as the carriage door opens and a familiar voice offers a calm, "Good morning, Marie." Ronaldo steps out, his presence commanding and graceful, expressing how much he has been looking forward to this moment. Marie meets his gaze, her expression a mix of awe and anxiety as the powerful duke stands before her. The carriage and the knight move through the secluded path, the high-stakes meeting finally beginning in the shadows of the forest. Alberto remains vigilant on his horse, watching over the carriage where Marie and the duke are now sequestered together. Inside the carriage, Ronaldo asks if she has faced any hardships or inconveniences while living as a maid in the castle. He speaks to her not just as a duke, but as Rosemary's younger brother, seeking a private and honest conversation. Marie is struck by his ethereal beauty, realizing that his nickname, the Duke of Ice, refers to his features as much as his politics. Feeling like a simple country girl, she admits to him that she feels incredibly out of place sitting right next to someone of his stature. Ronaldo gently pivots the conversation, showing a deep interest in her past by asking how she lived when she was a little girl. Marie describes a life of hard work on the farm, involving animal care and knitting, which surprises him with its simple rigor. Reflecting on a life well spent, the narrator notes that every day felt fulfilling and fun. A hooded man offers a gentle smile, expressing his genuine happiness at hearing such positive news. To her shock, a sudden realization strikes her as she gasps in a moment of intense clarity. Clutching her cloak tightly, Marie remembers Ronaldo and Alberto while apologizing to her brother for the choices she's made. As a haunting image of a gallows appears, she reflects on how her companions have moved forward while she remained trapped in the peace of Rosemary's death. The hooded Ronaldo offers a kind smile, his gentle expression radiating warmth and understanding. Ronaldo clenches his fist in a tense silence, the weight of his unspoken emotions hanging heavy in the air. A lone speech bubble emphasizes the long-standing nature of the feelings he is about to reveal. Staring with wide, earnest eyes, she declares that she has no desire for revenge against King Grey or Queen Tia. With a steady gaze, she firmly asks Ronaldo to abandon any thoughts of vengeance he might be harboring. Ronaldo looks down solemnly, acknowledging that he fully understands his older sister's feelings. He offers a solemn vow, promising never to do anything that would bring sadness to her again. Startled by his conviction, she looks at him with a mix of surprise and hope, questioning if he truly means it. Ronaldo's expression hardens into one of absolute resolve as he gives his word and swears to uphold his promise. A vision of the past overlaps with the present as she offers a tearful, smiling thank you. The atmosphere shifts as the three of them finally sit down for tea, celebrating a reunion 24 years in the making. The conversation turns bittersweet as Ronaldo notes that Rosemary would have been 36 this year, the same age as Alberto. Ronaldo leans back and casually asks the two men if they have any intentions of getting married. Alberto cites his busy night duties as an excuse, while the other man notes the instability of the Rose Duchy. Marie looks on in surprise as she is told what a waste it is for such splendid men to remain single. Ronaldo smirks and turns the tables, asking when Marie herself plans to get married. Flustered and sweating, Marie stammers out that she might consider it sometime in the future. Slamming the table with a comical she declares she wants to marry a lord who has absolutely nothing to do with the palace. Ronaldo simply closes his eyes and absorbs her outburst with a quiet, knowing, "I see." The mood shifts back to business as Ronaldo brings up the pressing matter of Prince Rizal's marriage proposal. Marie realizes with a start that they never actually resolved the issue during their last chaotic encounter. The focus of the meeting officially turns towards seeking advice on how to handle the prince's persistent proposal. Ronaldo mentions that things have been different recently regarding the prince's behavior. He reveals that he is the reason the prince hasn't visited Marie lately, despite his habit of coming by on every day off. Startled by this revelation, Marie can only utter a confused as Ronaldo prepares to make a request. Ronaldo makes a startling proposal, asking Marie to come to the Rose Duchy and work as a maid there instead. Both Marie and Alberto are left speechless, their faces frozen in a state of absolute shock. Alberto stands up abruptly in a fit of rage, demanding to know what Ronaldo thinks he is doing. A tense three-way standoff ensues as the weight of Ronaldo's suggestion settles over the room. Ronaldo remains unmoved by the outburst, coldly stating that Marie's status as the knight's maid will not change his mind. He argues that if she remains where she is, it will be impossible to avoid the prince's unwanted attention. Alberto's gaze turns sharp and protective as he declares his absolute intent to shield her from harm. Ronaldo mocks him, questioning what a simple knight with a sword can possibly do against the power of the throne. The air in the room practically cracks with the intensity of the confrontation between the two men. Alberto takes a long, tensed gulp of his tea, trying to maintain his composure under the pressure. Ronaldo warns that the king's pawns are already watching, questioning if the Rose territory is truly any safer. Leaning on his hand, Ronaldo argues that no place is more dangerous for her right now than the royal palace. He presses Alberto further, asking if he is truly prepared to handle the volatile feelings of a prince in love. Marie sits in the middle of the conflict, completely overwhelmed and silent as the men debate her future. She reflects on how Ronaldo has always been a skilled and ruthless negotiator since they were children. Ronaldo's expression turns deadly serious as he vows that he will not lose his sister a second time. Alberto slumps over the table in defeat, realizing that while Ronaldo is a good negotiator, he certainly isn't being cute about it. In a rare moment of agreement, Alberto admits that he feels the same way about the situation. Marie stares in wide-eyed realization, moved by the intensity of the protection they both wish to offer her. Alberto covers his face in emotional turmoil, confessing that he simply cannot bear to be separated from her again so soon. Marie places her hand over her heart and softly addresses Alberto, announcing her decision to go to Duke Rose's home. A brief pause hangs in the air as she prepares to add a condition to her departure. She asks if they will hire her as a palace maid once more after the prince's fiancé situation is finally resolved. With a bright, beaming smile, she admits she has finally gotten used to the job and would be sad to leave it forever. Internally, she acknowledges that Rosemary's memories are warning her of the growing danger within the palace walls. She realizes there are far too many people currently attempting to manipulate the prince for their own gain. Marie fears that if the extent of the prince's feelings becomes public, she will be used as a political pawn. Despite her smile, she knows she must leave the palace for the safety of everyone, including Alberto. She speaks Alberto's name gently, asking for his understanding just for this temporary period. Alberto sits in stunned silence, his blank expression hiding the depth of his resignation. Looking down with a heavy heart, Alberto finally utters a single word of acceptance. Marie brightens up and expresses her genuine excitement to see the beauty of the Rose territory. Ronaldo reaches out and takes her hand in a warm, welcoming gesture that seals their new arrangement. He promises to have all of Rosemary's and Marie's favorite flowers ready for her arrival at the duchy. Against a backdrop of blooming flowers, Ronaldo warmly tells her that he will be eagerly awaiting her arrival. A solitary traveler on horseback gallops across a vast, rugged landscape under a wide, cloudy sky. The hooded passenger reflects that the journey back to the royal palace feels far longer than the initial departure. They navigate a desolate, less traveled road to maintain their cover and avoid any unwanted attention. Alberto turns back to his companion, tenderly asking if they are feeling the bite of the cold. The companion offers a soft, reassuring smile, insisting they are perfectly fine. The lone horse and its two riders appear as a dark silhouette against the fading light of the horizon. Suddenly, Alberto pulls the horse to a halt, prompting his confused companion to ask what has gone wrong. Alberto stands in silence, his back turned as he processes a heavy realization. The passenger understands that even though Alberto follows her lead to the Rose territory, he has not truly accepted the situation. Alberto suggests taking a quick break, noting that the royal palace is still a great distance away. Stepping down, Alberto firmly takes her hand in his grip signaling a deep, unspoken concern. She looks him in the eye and promises to stay safe this time, urging him not to worry. Reflecting on her past as Rosemary, she realizes she must finally say the things her one and only knight needs to hear. Leaning in close, she whispers that she truly believes in his strength to protect her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Alberto pulls her into a sudden, powerful embrace. The intensity of his reaction leaves her wide-eyed and startled by the depth of his feelings. She trembles slightly in his arms, breathlessly asking what has come over him. Alberto quickly regains his composure and pulls away, masking his turmoil with a formal apology. Casting his gaze aside, he asks if they should resume their journey back. She stares at him, her face flushed with a mixture of confusion and lingering emotion. The pair continues their ride across the mountains as the sun begins to dip below the horizon. The grand, multi-towered royal palace finally comes into view, standing tall against the sky. Prince Rizel's voice rings out across the grounds, urgently calling for Alberto. Rizel rushes forward with a desperate expression, demanding to know where Alberto is going. The prince's attendant tries to restrain him, pleading with him to wait and stay calm. The attendant hushes the prince, reminding him to lower his voice to avoid a public scene. He warns Rizel that they must be cautious, as they never know who might be eavesdropping on their conversation. Rizel falls into a sullen silence, his face tight with frustration and sweat. Inside, Rizel demands to know if his messages are even being delivered, noting it has been 7 days since his last rejection. The prince warns that he is beginning to suspect an intentional effort to keep him distanced from Marie. Alberto offers his sincerest apologies, but Rizel snaps back that he has no use for empty words. Rizel leans forward with intensity, demanding a real explanation for the forced separation. Alberto explains that they must lay low because people have already become aware of the prince's feelings. He warns that frequent visits will expose them, especially since the nobility is currently obsessed with the prince's engagement. Alberto watches the prince, realizing the young man is completely lost and unsure of how to proceed. Rizel looks down in defeat, forced to acknowledge the harsh reality of their situation. Alberto observes that the longer the prince is kept away, the more his forbidden feelings seem to grow. Desperate, Rizel asks if Marie's reputation is being protected through this forced distance. Alberto internally sympathizes with the prince's frustration, knowing there is no medicine to quiet a longing heart. He stands firm in his duty, despite the emotional weight of the prince's plea. Alberto informs him that Marie will be stationed as a maid at the Rose Duchy for the time being to ensure her safety. The prince reacts with total shock, his eyes widening at the news of her relocation. Rizel eventually concedes that she will be safe under Duke Ronaldo's protection. He laments the massive physical distance that will now separate him from the woman he loves. Alberto promises that she will return to the knight's barracks once the political situation settles down. The two men share a heavy look, both trapped by their respective roles and secrets. Rizel clutches his head in despair, pleading for just a single glance of her as he struggles to be patient. The prince closes his eyes in agony, whispering Marie's name to the empty room. He begs for her to return to him quickly. In another room, Alberto sits alone at his desk, head in his hands as he repeats her name. He envisions the girl reappearing before him with a bright, cheerful smile as Marie. He is haunted by the memory of Rosemary, the woman who was executed in the past. The weight of history and his current position press down on him. He reflects on the complexities of the present moment. Alberto acknowledges that while his social position is now higher than hers, the dynamic remains unchanged. He looks at a vision of her smiling and realizes his loyalty has not wavered a single bit. He rests his hand on the desk, his grip tightening as his internal composure slips. Standing by the window in the dark, Alberto confesses to himself that he is deeply jealous of Prince Rizel. The prince's desperate cries to see Marie echo in Alberto's mind, fueling his inner turmoil. Alberto admits that if he didn't harbor these intense feelings, he wouldn't be in this much pain. The name Alberto Macurin stands as a reminder of his identity and his heavy burden. He recalls the desperate plea of a young girl in the rain, begging him to help save her sister. In that memory, Alberto calmly accepted the task, offering his assistance to the distraught child. He reflects on Leonardo's quest for revenge, noting that it has yet to be fulfilled. Exhausted, Alberto slumps at his desk, admitting that he would be happy just to have Marie by his side. A solitary caption reflects on the future, looking forward to the moment once everything finally reaches its conclusion. Ronaldo and Marie share a cheerful moment together, envisioning a future where they can finally spend their days in peace. The knight's expression shifts into one of deep, silent sorrow as he looks downward with misty eyes. A sense of internal conflict takes hold as he desperately questions why things must be this way. He reflects on his hidden regrets, wishing he had expressed his true feelings alongside his formal oath of allegiance. The knight rests a steady hand upon the hilt of his sword, grounding himself in his duty. Torn between his past and present, he grips his blade tightly while the memories of Rosemary and Marie swirl around him. He admires Prince Rizal's strength, envying his ability to convey feelings straight from the heart. Reflecting on both Rizal and Ronaldo, he considers their power to clearly envision and grasp what they truly desire. With a firm grip on his weapon, he admits to himself that he simply cannot do things that way. The knight reaffirms his singular purpose, declaring that he can only ever be her personal knight. Driven by the failure to protect Rosemary in his past life, he vows that his one and only wish is to protect Marie now. Prince Rizal bursts with excitement, joyfully announcing his decision to begin exchanging letters with Marie. The knight stares back with a look of pure, sweating disbelief at the prince's sudden enthusiasm. Rizal pleads for permission to write, arguing that discreet letters shouldn't cause any issues since she isn't around others. A beaming smile lights up the prince's face as he offers a sincere thanks for the knight's cooperation. Overflowing with energy, Rizal rushes off to immediately start planning the contents of his first letter. The knight watches the departing prince, noting how his radiant brightness is almost overwhelming. He sighs at his mounting workload, realizing he must also send letters to ensure the prince's correspondence remains inconspicuous. As he prepares to write, he wonders if a formal tone will still result in him getting scolded. The scene shifts to the Rose Duchy a few days later as a horse-drawn carriage crosses into the territory. A distinguished man stands ready by the carriage to welcome the new arrival. With a warm and gentle smile, Ronaldo greets Marie and tells her how long he has been waiting. He stands tall against the backdrop of the estate, officially welcoming her to his home. Marie looks on in wonder as she is officially welcomed into the heart of the Rose Duchy. Introducing herself as the 15-year-old daughter of a countryside baron, Marie Edigma begins her new life. Beneath the surface lies a dark past. Marie is actually the reincarnation of the executed villainess, Rosemary Hubert. In an ironic twist of fate, the former lady has now returned to serve as a maid for the Rose family. She finds it surreal to be standing in the territory of Duke Ronaldo, who was once her very own younger brother. Ronaldo asks if she likes the territory while Marie reflects on the strange reality of serving her former sibling. Gazing out at the landscape, she remarks on what a truly beautiful place it seems to be. Ronaldo explains the local culture, describing the vibrant markets where immigrants and mountain residents trade their wares. The carriage continues its journey down the path as Ronaldo points toward their approaching destination. Marie lets out a gasp of awe as a massive, towering castle comes into view, which Ronaldo identifies as his mansion. Ronaldo notes that the castle, previously owned by the territory's former lord, is quite a distance from the city. Marie admires the beautiful old style of the building, though she suspects Ronaldo remains largely indifferent to its grandeur. Upon arrival, Ronaldo formally introduces Marie to the staff as his new personal maid. The estate staff lines up to welcome the Duke home, bowing respectfully as he enters. Marie offers a polite greeting, still adjusting to the fact that her little brother has grown into such a lordly figure. She finds it genuinely shocking to see the professional, authoritative face he wears as the lord of the territory. Ronaldo introduces Marie to a man named Liver, placing her directly under his care. The elderly butler, Liver, introduces himself with a formal bow, leaving Marie visibly startled. Marie introduces herself politely while secretly wondering why the butler looks so familiar to her. She suddenly realizes that Liver is the very same servant who used to serve at her mansion in her previous life. As Liver offers to show her around, Marie suspects that Ronaldo chose him because he knows she remembers the man. The two walk together through the manor's elegant, sunlit corridors. A familiar scent wafting from the garden catches Marie's attention as they pass by. She looks out to see a stunning display of roses and marigolds blooming in the garden beds. Marie is touched to see that Ronaldo kept his promise to plant the favorite flowers of both his sisters. When asked if she likes the garden, Marie enthusiastically confirms that she likes it very much. The butler watches her kindly, noting her positive reaction to the estate's greenery. the grand architecture of the manor towers over the lush grounds. Liver explains that while most servants stay in a separate building, Marie's situation will be quite different. He reveals that because she is Ronaldo's personal maid, her room is located directly next to the Duke's own chambers. Marie is completely floored by the news, her face contorting in a mix of shock and panic. Liver quickly hushes her, assuring her that everyone in the mansion is exceptionally tight-lipped about such matters. The sheer implication of the living arrangement leaves Marie blushing and utterly speechless. She frantically tries to correct him, embarrassed that the staff might misinterpret her relationship with the Duke. Liver chuckles warmly, noting that everyone is pleased that spring has finally arrived for the young lord. Marie's mind races through recent events involving Ronaldo, overwhelmed by the butler's suggestive comments. Blushing deeply, she stammers that they absolutely do not have that kind of relationship. The butler simply smiles back, clearly amused by her flustered reaction. He continues to laugh, playfully suggesting that no one can truly know what the future might hold for them. The sun begins to set over the reinforced walls of the Rose estate. Marie looks out at the banners of the Rose Duchy, her thoughts lingering on Ronaldo and the life ahead. Duke Ronaldo welcomes his anti-royalist faction to a periodic revenge meeting at a secluded estate. The cloaked members gather around a table to strategize their next move against the crown. A dark banner featuring a rose and a sharp thorn hangs prominently on the stone wall. A heavy footstep echoes through the hall as the leader prepares to address the assembly. Ronaldo stands before his loyal followers, ready to unveil the next phase of their long-standing vendetta. He explains that he has been cultivating this secret faction within the shadows for many years. With a confident smirk, Ronaldo thanks the ladies and gentlemen for their unwavering dedication tonight. He reflects on his sister, Rosemary, noting that while there were surprises, the plan remains in motion. Ronaldo announces that the time has finally come to execute the great revenge plan made in his sister's honor. He finds it both cruel and gentle that she can now witness the completion of her vengeance. In his mind, he sees her image and notes that she has effectively returned to him in the form of Marie. Raising a chalice, he condemns the corruption festering within the royal palace. He declares it is time for the poisonous thorn to strike as they begin their final discussions. Despite his grand ambitions, Ronaldo secretly longs to finish the task quickly so he can spend more time with her. Elsewhere, the elderly servant Liver arrives to deliver a stack of newly arrived letters to Marie. Marie asks him to hold them for a moment while she finishes organizing her current documents. She finds her work within the Rose Duchy to be progressing with incredible smoothness. Marie realizes the office is far more organized than she expected, a testament to Ronaldo's efficiency. Liver places the letters on the desk, noting there are even more than the documents she just sorted. Marie begins to rustle through the envelopes, touched by the volume of messages from everyone. Her brother, Stanley Edigma, writes a stern warning for her not to bother the people at the Rose Duchy. Another friend, Nikki, teases her in a letter, asking if Duke Ronaldo has actually become her favorite. Nikki also mentions that Alberto has become increasingly lonely and irritable since Marie's departure. Marie looks at the drawing of Nikki and thinks of the many things they need to discuss. She recognizes Alberto's distinct handwriting on one of the envelopes and pulls it from the stack. Alberto writes to tell her the knights' barracks are lonely and urges her to mind the cold mountain climate. Marie smiles warmly, grateful to hear that everyone misses her and wants her to return home soon. She reaches for the final letter, curious to see who the last sender could be. To her shock, the letter is from Prince Rizzle, who has written a poem about his feelings for her. She is immediately overwhelmed by the flowery and romantic poetic imagery he used. Marie's face turns bright red as she processes the prince's intense and dramatic declaration. She muses that Rizzle could be a famous poet if he weren't a prince, though the replies took longer than expected. Realizing the time, she rushes out of the building to get her correspondence to the post office. As she runs, she is suddenly stopped by the familiar voice of Liver calling her name. Liver warns her that the Rose Duchy gets quite cold in the evenings due to the surrounding mountains. He gently places a warm stole made of local sheep wool over her shoulders to protect her from the chill. Liver suggests she stop at a specific viewpoint after the post office to see the whole city. They look out over the glowing lights of the town, and Marie finds the scenery absolutely wonderful. Liver reflects that he is only able to enjoy such a view because of his long service to Ronaldo. Marie listens intently as the old man prepares to share a piece of the Duke's history. She asks Liver exactly when he first began serving the Duke. Liver takes a moment to think back to the origins of his long career. He reveals that he was let go by his previous master, Duke Hubert, during a period of mass layoffs. It was then that a 13-year-old Ronaldo recognized his talent and invited him to help build his home. Looking back at the thriving duchy, Liver is glad he chose to follow such an empowering young leader. After hearing his story, Liver tells Marie that he has something important he would like to ask her. He asks her when exactly she first happened to meet Duke Ronaldo. Marie explains that their meeting was arranged through the night Alberto. Liver gazes into the distance, noting that he has been watching over the Duke for over 20 years now. He confesses that watching Ronaldo talk to Marie often reminds him of the old days. Marie is stunned when he mentions the Duke's sister, Rosemary Hubert. Liver notes the nostalgic feeling of seeing the Duke spend time with someone, just as he did with his sister. A cold shiver runs down Marie's spine as the conversation turns to the tragic past. He mentions that 20 years ago, Rosemary was labeled a villainess, tried and executed. Despite the public's judgment, Liver insists that he knew the young woman very well. He firmly states that she was never the type of person to have committed the crimes she was accused of. Marie stares in silence, her eyes wide as she listens to this defense of her former self. She recalls the feeling of being resented by the entire country, or at least thinking she was. She realizes now that those who truly knew Rosemary might not have been swept away by the horrible rumors. A faint, sad smile touches her lips as she processes the old man's loyalty. Liver points toward a distant structure and asks if Marie has ever seen the mausoleum before. He warns her that it is known as a place one should never enter. Despite the taboo, Liver reveals that Duke Ronaldo visits that forbidden place every single day. While the interior remains a mystery, it is believed to be the final resting place of Rosemary. Marie gasps in shock, realizing her brother has kept her memory alive in such a profound way. An illicit grave marked by a crude wooden cross stands as a grim reminder that executed criminals in this country must be cremated by law. Shaken by the discovery, the girl realizes Ronaldo must have secretly stolen her corpse after her execution. The man dismisses the notion of the grave's contents as nothing more than a simple rumor. He warns her to stay away from the site, recounting a chilling story of a thief who entered and was never seen again. She privately wonders if Ronaldo is truly capable of secretly disposing of intruders to protect his secrets. The scene shifts as a sudden realization or exclamation hangs in the air. The elderly man tells Marie it is time to head back and begin dinner preparations before Ronaldo returns home. Marie quickly gives her consent, though her expression remains troubled by her inner thoughts. A close-up reveals the intense emotional weight and perspiration on the girl's face as she contemplates her situation. She marvels at the lengths Ronaldo has gone for Rosemary, from stealing a corpse to harboring her reincarnated soul. Rosemary reflects on how Ronaldo has been bound by his past and wonders if he will truly abandon his quest for revenge. Tears fall as the weight of the revenge and the emotional burden of the past continue to haunt the present. A silent, somber portrait captures the girl's melancholic resolve as she looks forward. In the Duretsa kingdom, a sudden spark of excitement arrives in the form of a letter from Marie. The recipient decides to retreat to their private room to read the precious correspondence in secret. Prince Rizzle puts on a dazzling smile, reminding himself to maintain his perfect, princely public appearance. The prince is spotted by observers as he makes his way through the grand palace corridors. A noble approaches the prince, noting with a smirk that he seems to be in an exceptionally good mood. Rizzle maintains his composure while privately critiquing the insincerity of the nobles who flock to him. He offers a courteous but hollow greeting, masking his true disdain for their performative politeness. The noble continues the conversation, highlighting Rizzle's enviable position and many options. He pressures the prince to finally choose a favorite from the many queen candidates currently residing in the palace. Rizzle dismisses the pressure with a laugh, claiming such an important decision requires a great deal of time. As the prince walks away, he overhears the nobles muttering about his seemingly carefree nature amidst the country's national turmoil. Internal power struggles intensify behind the visible discord between King Grey and Queen Tia. A metaphoric chessboard illustrates the fierce rivalry between the Danzas faction and the Kingdom faction. Each faction remains highly suspicious of the other's unusual and calculated movements within the court. Amidst the warring sides exists the neutral faction, a group that refuses to pledge loyalty to either the king or queen. Rizzle chides himself to remain composed, knowing he cannot rush if he hopes to resolve the country's deep disorder. A secret agent approaches the prince to deliver a confidential report regarding a significant matter. Rizzle searches for a reliable spy to gather intelligence and identify who is truly behind the political chaos. The spy reveals that the person Rizzle needs to be wary of is someone he already knows. The shock is absolute as the spy identifies the mastermind as none other than Duke Ronaldo Rose. Rizzle acknowledges the report with a cold clarity and dismisses his informant. The prince stands in stunned silence, the weight of Ronaldo's betrayal sinking in. He realizes that on some level he had already sensed Ronaldo's true intentions. Ronaldo has been acting with an uncharacteristic and suspicious sense of urgency lately. The Duke had previously avoided Rizzle, apologizing for being too busy with urgent personal matters. Rizzle recalls how Ronaldo suddenly whisked Marie away to his own territory to serve as a maid. He fears that Marie is becoming a pawn in a game far larger and more dangerous than he initially imagined. A memory of Marie's bright, innocent smile serves as a painful contrast to her current peril. Spurred by concern, Rizal dashes through the palace doors to find answers. He seeks out Alberto, hoping for some reassurance regarding Ronaldo's character. Alberto insists that Ronaldo is a man who could never bring himself to hurt Marie. Rizal wants to trust Alberto's word, but a lingering doubt continues to gnaw at him. He remains deeply worried that Ronaldo is simply using Marie for his own ends. The prince confirms that Duke Ronaldo Rose is indeed the secret leader of the neutral faction. Alberto wonders if the Duke is planning something significant behind the scenes. Alberto maintains his belief that things will be fine, though Rizal is far less certain. He emphasizes that Marie is a person of immense importance to Ronaldo. Rizal questions whether Marie's importance to the Duke is purely genuine or something more calculated. The prince then pivots, noting that Marie is clearly very important to Alberto as well. Alberto smiles gently, confirming that she is indeed a very important maid to him. Rizal sees right through the lie, knowing Alberto's feelings for her go far beyond a simple master-servant bond. He points out the unprecedented expression Alberto wears whenever Marie is around. The prince realizes he has found a kindred spirit in Alberto regarding their shared affection for Marie. Rizal playfully declares Alberto his love rival before accepting a cup of tea to settle the tension. While drinking the bitter tea, Rizal internally vows that he will not lose when it comes to his feelings for Marie. A sudden, sharp focus overcomes the prince as he notices something unusual about the tea. Alberto's expression turns dark and unreadable as the atmosphere in the room shifts. Rizal reacts with shock as the situation takes an unexpected and potentially dangerous turn. The prince asks a final, pointed question. Who exactly sent these tea leaves to Alberto? The teacup and saucer fly through the air as the prince suddenly loses consciousness. A close-up shows Rizal clutching his chest as the effects of the tea take hold. The prince collapses onto the sofa, completely incapacitated, as Alberto stands over him in silence. In a somber farewell, a mysterious woman with long hair turns away from a letter addressed to Prince Rizal. With a look of deep regret, she confesses her inability to respond to his words of love, declaring herself unfit to become a queen. Despite her rejection, she offers a final, gentle smile and a glimmer of hope for the future. She expresses her sincere desire for the prince to become a wonderful king as he lies unconscious amidst a bed of thorns and roses. A dark-haired man watches over the sleeping prince, who remains lost in a deep slumber. The man bids Prince Rizal to take a long and final rest as the scene fades into darkness. Braving a heavy downpour, Ronaldo-sama refuses an umbrella, insisting he won't be out in the rain for long. Shrouded in a dark hood, the man stares ahead with a cold and determined gaze into the drenching rain. An older man watches him depart, noting that he is heading toward the usual place. The figure approaches a secluded, stone mausoleum nestled among overgrown foliage in the storm. Standing before the grave, the man muses on the mystery of Marie being called Wanu, even though her bones rest there. He greets his sister at the tomb, noting that she is already right there next to him. With a chilling realization, he confirms his presence at the site. Proclaiming that the time has finally come after a long wait, he vows to dispel his lingering regrets. Reaching out toward a spectral image of a woman, he promises to complete his mission safely and asks her to wait patiently. The names Tia Danzas and Grey Dorezzo loom over the faces of the two figures, signaling a fated connection. His eyes sharpen with malice as he declares it is time to condemn the beasts who caused his sister's demise. The narrative shifts to the grand towers of Dorezza's royal palace. Inside the palace, an attendant presents Grey-sama with a list of new fiancé candidates for Prince Rizal. Grey looks on with a weary expression, hoping the prince might actually like one of the candidates this time. He reflects on his own past fiancé selection, recalling how candidates would pose as maids to be chosen. Images of beautiful women from his past haunt his memory as he sinks into contemplation. He realizes that no matter the circumstances, his choice would have never wavered. With a heavy heart, Grey admits to himself that he is positive he would have still chosen Tia. A flashback to 20 years prior at the Dorezza royal palace reveals a young Grey shouting in protest. Grey's father sternly reminds him that he is the man who must become the country's next king. The king insists that Grey needs a solid wife to support him, promising the chosen woman is perfect for the role. He praises the candidate's political understanding and refined etiquette, calling her the perfect partner. The doors swing open as the young Prince Grey is formally greeted by his prospective fiancée. A beautiful woman named Rosemary Hubert introduces herself, expressing her pleasure at making his acquaintance. Grey is instantly struck by her beauty, barely able to stammer out a polite response. He acknowledges that Rosemary is exactly as his father described. However, he quickly realizes that she is far more capable and intimidating than he is. Her overwhelming popularity and presence begin to weigh on the young prince. Grey finds her to be far more serious and disciplined than he could ever hope to be. Rosemary scolds Gray for playing games when he should be studying national affairs. Feeling stifled, Gray grumbles that she acts more like a strict tutor than a loving fiancé. He grows resentful, questioning why he must marry a woman he doesn't even like despite her looks. In the midst of his frustration, he meets Tia, the daughter of Count Danzas, who begins serving as a palace maid. Tia introduces herself with a bow, promising to do her absolute best to serve the prince. Gray is completely mesmerized by her, finding her beauty truly breathtaking. He becomes increasingly sick of Rosemary's constant nagging and interference in his life. His thoughts turn bitterly toward his official fiancée. Contrasting the two, he laments that Rosemary never listens to him or shows him affection like Tia does. Tia offers to spoil the prince even more, noticing how hard he works. She leans in close, claiming she is the only one in the palace who truly knows the spoiled side of him. Tia tells him she couldn't be happier to see this cute, vulnerable side of him up close. Gray finds solace in Tia, believing she is the only woman who says exactly what he wants to hear. He calls her a great woman, wishing desperately that he could marry her instead of Rosemary. Tia giggles and praises him as a splendid man in return. Gray begins to visit Tia frequently, seeking refuge in her company. Gray eventually confronts Rosemary, accusing her of threatening Tia, which she flatly denies. Rosemary tries to remind him of his future responsibilities as king, but he tells her to shut up. Exploding in a rage, Gray warns Rosemary not to say another word. He possessively declares that Tia serves him and him alone. Rosemary stares at him in shocked silence as the prince's hostility peaks. Gray declares with total finality that he is completely fed up. While in bed with Tia, he expresses his hatred for his fiancée and his desire to stay with Tia forever. Tia comforts him, whispering that everything will be okay in the near future. She tells him not to worry and that good things are coming, leaving Gray confused. Tia drops a bombshell, claiming that she thinks Rosemary-sama is actually trying to kill her. A horrified Gray asks for proof, and a sobbing Tia claims she has evidence of the threat. She tearfully recounts how Rosemary looks at her with hatred and yells at her with a terrifying face. Gray immediately assumes Rosemary is acting out of pure jealousy over his love for Tia. As Tia begs for help, Gray realizes that Rosemary will likely ignore anything he has to say. Gray dismisses Tia's concern about the palace, noting that many there hide their ugly natures behind friendly smiles. He points out that Rosemary also uses this deceptive personality to navigate royal life without suspicion. The political tension between Rosemary's house Hubert and Tia's house Danzas is described as extremely poor. Despite her immense talent and being good at everything, Rosemary supposedly could not hold on to love. Gray reflects that Rosemary's downfall makes sense if her true nature was actually that of a devil. Following their schemes, Gray's plans progressed with frightening smoothness to avoid her traps. Count Danzas gathered immaculate physical evidence against Rosemary, including poisonous tea leaves and needles. Rosemary desperately cries out to Prince Gray, insisting she is not the type of person to commit murder. The investigation added guilt to the entire Hubert family, leading to Rosemary's execution by hanging. With the Huberts banished, House Danzas successfully takes over the management of all national affairs. In the wake of the political shift, Gray and his love, Tia, are finally married in a grand ceremony. The couple shares a tender moment, wishing to convey the happiness of their wedding day to future generations. Their joy expands with the birth of their son, Rizzle, and they record their love in a picture book. Gray rests with Tia, expressing his absolute certainty that their happiness will continue forever. He whispers a plea for Tia to remain by his side for the rest of time. After the marriage, Tia begins spending money as recklessly as she possibly can. She neglects her son, Rizzle, and rarely returns to the royal palace at all. Frustrated and alone, Gray wonders where Tia goes and why she refuses to return home. While sitting in despair, Gray notices a mysterious letter left on his desk. He finds the letter and questions who could have sent it or if it is a prank. The letter claims it will teach Gray about Tia's true nature, sparking a dark curiosity. Inside, Gray finds a map with detailed dates and times that seem far too elaborate for a joke. Driven by suspicion, Gray heads to the red light district to investigate the claims. To his horror, Gray witnesses Tia whispering words of love to an unknown man. Gray realizes the truth is a lie as his spy confirms Tia has relationships with various men at night. Little Rizzle calls out for his father while Gray is lost in his grim discoveries. A nanny scolds Rizzle for stretching the king's sleeve as Gray remains unresponsive. Gray looks at the child with deep doubt, questioning the boy's true lineage. Overwhelmed by suspicion, Gray hands over all care of Rizzle to the nanny, fearing the boy isn't his. Despite the child's presence, Gray admits he can no longer believe Rizzle is his real son. Gray begins seeking out relationships with other women, distancing himself further from Tia. Even though his heart is broken, Gray confesses that he still loves Tia deeply. House Danzas now dominates the National Affairs Council, leaving the kingdom riddled with problems. Council members bombard Gray with news of suspicious movements from neighboring countries and budget issues. Paralyzed by the political situation, Gray feels he has no choice but to follow Count Danzas's guidance. Gray laments his status as a puppet king, unsure of how to continue ruling under Danzas's thumb. A longtime vassal of his father approaches Gray with a suggestion for someone who can help. Trusting the vassal's loyalty, Gray agrees to meet the person being introduced. The mysterious figure approaches, stepping forward and promising to handle the king's troubles. The man vows to be of great help to King Gray during these trying times. To Gray's shock, the man is revealed to be Ronaldo Rose, Rosemary's younger brother. Gray questions why Ronaldo would cooperate since Gray was responsible for his sister's execution. Ronaldo kneels before the king, leaving Gray to wonder about his true motives. Ronaldo quickly stabilizes the kingdom, gaining immense power and influence even over the Danzas faction. Ronaldo bows before King Gray, stating that he has come to make amends for the past. With a chilling smile, Ronaldo claims he would be overjoyed if his assistance helped the king. Ronaldo claims he wants to work for the king to atone for his sister's sins and her attempt on the queen. Gray internally realizes that Ronaldo is hiding a devilish nature behind a pleasant facade. Ronaldo continues to approach Gray from all directions, even involving himself with Rizzle without naming a price. A sense of foreboding consumes Gray as he becomes certain that Ronaldo will kill him someday. Gray gasps as he is snapped back to reality, realizing his complexion looks poor to those around him. A courtier mentions that Ronaldo has been busy and hasn't been seen in the palace lately. Gray notes that negotiations in the south are taking a long time, keeping Ronaldo away. Gray feels a momentary relief to be free of Ronaldo's constant monitoring and watchful eye. The long absence only makes Gray's feeling of foreboding grow much stronger. Elsewhere, a hooded figure decides to return and greet Marie before heading to the capital. Gray stares out the window, desperately wondering what Ronaldo is planning next. The narrative shifts to Marie, who works in Ronaldo's castle where the staff is unusually small. Marie goes about her chores, her face partially obscured by her long hair. She finds herself running around all day to keep the castle running. Exhausted from her labor, Marie takes a moment to breathe and admits she is tired. A sudden knock at the door interrupts Marie's brief moment of rest. Marie sits up on her bed and tells the visitor to come in. She looks up with a soft expression as she recognizes the person entering the room. Ronaldo stands at the door, asking for permission to enter as Marie welcomes him. Ronaldo warns that it is unwise to allow others into one's room so easily. The young man stands with a somber, composed expression while draped in a dark traveling cloak. Ronaldo chuckles, noting that Marie seems remarkably unwary of everyone despite his warnings. Marie observes that Ronaldo's voice is much softer today compared to its usual icy tension. He praises her splendid work and mentions that Liver is quite pleased with her performance. Marie offers to prepare tea, but Ronaldo declines, stating he only came to talk for a moment. He reaffirms his intent to speak briefly as Marie prepares to listen. Settling at the table, Ronaldo prepares to discuss the events that will unfold from now on. He reveals a plan to take advantage of upcoming palace turmoil to resolve the crown prince's fiancée problem. Stunned, Marie questions if he truly possesses the power to impact the entire country. Ronaldo insists that while he cannot do it alone, the objective is indeed possible. He stops himself, admitting that there are details he cannot share at this moment. Marie looks on with concern, wondering what exactly is going to happen in the capital. Ronaldo explains that many similar issues have existed from the start and things are simply moving faster than expected. Marie clenches her dress, sensing that this situation is much bigger than she originally imagined. Desperate to be useful, she asks if there is anything at all she can do to help. Ronaldo looks at her intently and confirms that there is indeed one thing she can do. He tells Marie that the only thing he requires of her is to never disappear from his sight again. His gaze softens as he repeats his plea for her to stay where he can protect her. The two share an intimate, silent moment as the weight of his request hangs in the air. They embrace tightly in the sunlight streaming through the window. Ronaldo prepares his horse for departure, bidding her farewell as he readies to leave. He sets his sights on the royal capital, leaving Marie behind to watch him go. Marie watches his departing figure, softly whispering his name as he rides away. Ronaldo's final words about not being able to say more linger in her mind. She stands alone, watching him disappear into the distance. Marie feels a sense of unease, hoping the situation isn't as dire as it seems. She tries to convince herself that seeing him off happily was the right thing to do. A few days later, Marie focuses on her maid duties, deciding that doing her job well is her only current option. While cleaning, she notes how orderly Ronaldo keeps his room. She notices a specific book on the shelf that catches her attention. Marie pulls the book out, feeling a wave of nostalgia as she recognizes it. She remembers that this was a picture book that Rosemary loved dearly. As she flips through the pages, she finds that she remembers most of the story despite forgetting some parts. The story features a lord who has committed many evil deeds and a captive princess. A brave knight appears in the tale, ready to take action. In the classic hero story, the knight saves the princess and swears a sacred oath to her. Marie recalls wondering as a child why the princess would greet a new lord instead of marrying the knight. Now she realizes that politics, status, and the eyes of the world would have made such a romance impossible. A sudden, chilling thought occurs to her as she connects the dots. She remembers that the turbulence in the book's country was actually based on historical events. The story was a dramatization of a brutal civil war. Her eyes widen in shock as the true nature of Ronaldo's plan begins to dawn on her. The realization of what noisy truly means at the palace fills her with dread. Marie bursts into the room, startling Liver as she runs toward him in a panic. She breathlessly asks for a vacation and begs to borrow a horse immediately. She recalls the ending of the true story where the knight killed the king to end the civil war. Ronaldo's warning about the palace getting noisy soon takes on a murderous new context. Terrified, Marie wonders if Ronaldo is actually planning to assassinate the king. Although she has never ridden as Marie, she recalls the horseback lessons she was forced to take as Rosemary. She prays to her former self, Rosemary, to give her the strength and skill she needs now. With a determined cry, she mounts the horse and prepares to ride for the capital. Marie manages to stay in the saddle, resolved that she can do this to save those she cares about. She pushes through her fear, desperate to prevent a tragedy regardless of the risk. She admits she doesn't know if she can truly change anything, but she refuses to stay behind. The faces of Ronaldo and Rosemary flash through her mind as she sets her course. She thinks of Nikki, Prince Rizzle, Alberto, and everyone else whose lives are at stake. With a final surge of resolve, she declares that she must go. She grips the reins tightly, her knuckles turning white with the effort. Setting a breakneck pace, Marie charges toward the royal capital to stop the coming slaughter. Meanwhile, the lords of the anti-Grey royalist faction prepare to converge on the capital. Ronaldo and his allies finalize their plan, aiming to fulfill their revenge with as little bloodshed as possible. The conspirators share a look of grim determination as they prepare for the coup. They clasp hands, vowing to finally put an end to the deep regret they have carried for 20 years. The fortress stands silent and imposing as the shadow of rebellion looms over the kingdom. Alberto solemnly vows to accept his punishment once the current crisis concludes while a captive Prince Rizzle watches from the bed. Struggling against his bonds, Prince Rizzle demands to know exactly what Alberto is planning by tying him up. Alberto ignores the prince's protests, coldly telling Prince Rizzle to wait just a little longer. Leaving the room, Alberto orders his subordinate to provide the prince with as much comfort as possible while ensuring he does not escape. Prince Rizzle's desperate cries for Alberto echo through the hallway as the door shuts behind the traitorous knight. Alone in the corridor, a conflicted Alberto whispers a silent apology to his prince. He steels himself with the knowledge that the end is approaching very soon. Alberto reflects on Marie and the late Rosemary, noting that the latter never desired the path of revenge they have taken. Despite the moral weight, he acknowledges the numerous tasks he must still complete to see his plan through. He concludes with grim determination that they have already passed the point of no return. Visualizing the tragic silhouette of a hanging, Alberto reminds himself they have waited 20 long years for this revenge. The knight believes their long-awaited plot will finally come to fruition as he hears a sudden, panicked scream from outside. Startled by the familiar voice amidst the clamor, Alberto and his fellow knights look toward the source of the noise. Alberto realizes with shock that the voice belongs to Marie and urgently tries to process her sudden appearance. He panics, wondering why Marie is at the royal capital's night quarters when she should be safely at Ronaldo's mansion. Disaster strikes as Marie's horse begins to rampage out of control through the streets. Alberto watches in silent horror as the situation spirals into chaos. Marie screams in terror as her horse rears up, threatening to throw her onto the cobblestones. Alberto dashes forward on his own mount, shouting Marie's name as he closes the gap. He yells for Marie to grab onto his arm as he maneuvers his horse dangerously close to hers. The two horses gallop side by side at high speed while Alberto prepares for the daring rescue. Alberto reaches out his hand, straining to catch Marie before she falls. Their hands finally meet in a desperate grasp amidst the blur of motion. In a display of incredible strength, Alberto hauls Marie onto his horse and shields her in his arms. The knights watch from above as Alberto safely steers his horse away while Marie's mount gallops off. Marie huddles against Alberto's chest, trembling from the life-threatening ordeal. The runaway horse is finally captured by the other knights while Marie slowly begins to recover. Back in the confinement room, Prince Rizzle eyes a steaming cup of tea and sarcastically remarks that he'd like to drink it himself. The prince holds up his bound wrists, asking the guard if he can at least untie his shackles to drink. He gives a charming, manipulative smile, reminding the guard of his harmless nature. Rizzle reasons that since the guard is Alberto's subordinate, there is no way a weak prince like him could fight back. He pleads with a sweet expression, asking for the simple mercy of drinking the delicious tea himself. The guard relents and agrees to untie the prince's hands, but only for a short moment. Prince Rizzle offers a soft word of thanks, though his eyes remain unreadable as the ropes fall away. Outside the door, a loud bang startles Marie and Alberto as they walk through the quarters. Marie asks what the noise was, but Alberto dismisses it quickly and urges her to keep moving. Alberto privately realizes that Prince Rizzle must be going on a rampage and worries about the trouble it would cause if Marie saw it. Once they are seated, Alberto scolds Marie for her carelessness in riding all the way there without rest. Marie ignores the lecture and stares Alberto down, demanding to know the location of Ronaldo. A heavy silence falls between them as Alberto realizes Marie has sensed the depth of the conspiracy. Marie makes it clear that she knows exactly what is going on behind the scenes. Alberto tries to deflect, claiming nothing has been put into motion yet and telling her to prepare herself first. Marie nods solemnly, her expression filled with a mix of exhaustion and resolve. Alberto notes that he has never seen her ride a horse before, especially under such grueling conditions. Marie admits she doesn't actually know how to ride, but the spirit of Rosemary within her knew what to do. Alberto turns away, focused on the more important matters at hand as the tension reaches a breaking point. The table clatters as Marie stands abruptly, accusing Alberto of being an accomplice in Rosemary's revenge. She approaches him and begs for his cooperation, her desperation palpable. Marie looks him directly in the eye and demands to see Ronaldo right away. She clenches Alberto's clothing, shouting her plea as he tries to resist her emotional outburst. A sudden crash and a cry of "Yua" from the other room interrupt their confrontation. Alberto tells Marie to wait there as he rushes toward the source of the disturbance. He enters the room and freezes at the shocking sight before him. On the floor, the guard lies unconscious while Prince Rizzle stands over him holding a stolen dagger. The prince looks at the weapon and notes that it was Alberto who originally taught him self-defense. Rizzle turns a cold, sharp gaze toward Alberto, the calm prince now appearing dangerous and armed. He tells Alberto not to worry, as the guard has only passed out from the strike. Rizzle casually mentions that he simply borrowed the guard's knife to free himself. The prince taunts Alberto, stating he shouldn't have used such a kind subordinate to guard someone like him. Alberto approaches cautiously while Rizzle makes it clear he doesn't want to make a big deal out of the escape. The prince's face is a mask of intense focus as he prepares to confront his captor. Rizzle acknowledges that Alberto is still a calm and outstanding person, which is exactly why he is so dangerous. He explains that he needs to know the truth behind Alberto's betrayal. Rizzle demands to know why Alberto is acting like a thief and why he allowed the prince to watch the betrayal unfold. The blade clashes against Alberto's defense with a loud clang as the prince finally strikes. Alberto holds a blade to Prince Rizzle's throat, mocking his naivety. He reminds the prince that he once taught him the dangers of pointing a blade at an enemy. With a fierce strike, Alberto declares that one must have the absolute conviction to take a life. A tense silence follows as Rizzle stares back, sweat beading on his face while Alberto maintains his cold composure. Rizzle stands his ground with a dagger drawn, facing the overwhelming presence of his former mentor. Alberto's expression softens slightly as he acknowledges the prince's growth. Their blades clash violently with a loud ring, Alberto honestly admitting that Rizzle has become great. The duel intensifies as they exchange rapid strikes, sparks flying from their clashing steel. Nearby, Marie watches with wide eyes, her heart racing as the sounds of battle echo through the hall. Kneeling by a door, she listens to the sharp clatter of swords and the sound of something getting cut. She peeks through the opening, wondering if Alberto is the one engaged in the deadly struggle. Marie reflects on her internal connection to Rosemary, feeling an unusual closeness to her predecessor. She realizes that Rosemary is more than just a memory. She feels like an alter ego living within her. The reflection of her past self haunts her as she accepts that their identities have merged. Driven by an urgent need, Marie decides she must meet with Ronaldo as soon as possible. Ignoring her orders to stay put, she rushes forward, fueled by Rosemary's lingering desires. Sounds of a fierce clash erupt as she searches for Alberto, desperate to find him amidst the chaos. Rizel screams at Alberto that his path of vengeance will solve nothing. Marie recognizes the voice and realizes they are planning revenge against her father. Alberto strikes out with a powerful blow, claiming that history is merely repeating itself. He acknowledges Rizel's point but remains steadfast in his grim determination. Alberto admits the prince's ideals are admirable but refuses to back down from his mission. He argues that the human heart cannot be guided by reason alone when the weight of the past is so heavy. He recounts the darkness their lives have been shrouded in since losing Rosemary 20 years ago. Alberto tells the prince it is okay for them to harbor these feelings after everything they've suffered. Even if the prince speaks the truth, it brings them no relief from their long-standing pain. Alberto pins Rizel down, stating he wants him to become a proper prince the right way. He warns that once their revenge is finished, the prince might turn his blade on them for the same reasons. If that day comes, Alberto declares he will graciously accept his fate at the prince's hand. He reveals he has been prepared for that inevitable moment for a long time. Rizel is left speechless, his eyes wide with shock at the depth of Alberto's resolve. To his horror, the prince realizes there is a side to Alberto he never truly knew. Alberto clarifies that their actions are not for the sake of the country. Their entire existence has been dedicated to revenge since the day Rosemary was executed. He explains that this singular decision was the only thing that kept them going. Without that will for vengeance, Alberto confesses he would have lost his desire to live long ago. He tells Rizel to rest assured, slamming him against the wall with terrifying force. He claims Ronaldo is trying to complete the revenge while minimizing the collateral damage. Alberto chillingly promises that Ronaldo will only spill the blood of a single person. Rizel gasps for air as Alberto tells him to wait just a little longer. He orders the prince to stay and sleep quietly, looming over him with a dark expression. Alberto is suddenly distracted as Marie appears in the doorway, shocking them both. He demands to know why she left her room against his explicit instructions. Marie looks on with tears in her eyes as Rizel calls out her name in surprise. She explains that she tried to understand the desire for revenge shared by both Alberto and Ronaldo. Marie declares that the spirit of Rosemary inside of her is screaming out in pain. She begs them to let go of their hatred and end the cycle of violence. Embracing the situation, she vows that she won't let them feel alone anymore. Marie realizes that only the words of Rosemary can hope to open their closed hearts. She knows she must find a way to express this truth to Ronaldo to stop the bloodshed. Marie firmly states her intention to stop Ronaldo's plan using her connection to the past. She prepares herself to intervene, knowing she must act before the revenge is finalized. Turning to Alberto, she calls him her most precious knight and vows to thaw his frozen heart. She reaffirms her identity as Marie Edigma, while carrying the memories of Rosemary Hubert. Marie reflects on her journey to the capital, driven solely by the need to stop this tragedy. She laments that those precious to Rosemary are now the ones seeking vengeance in her name. It is a difficult path, but she is determined to change their fate. She pleads with Alberto to let her speak with Ronaldo directly. Alberto remains silent, his face unreadable as he processes her plea. A long silence hangs between them as they stand together in the dimly lit corridor. Rizel considers searching the palace with all his might if he were to leave now. He realizes that simply searching is not enough to resolve the deep-seated conflict. The complicated issue of Alberto's loyalty and pain still weighs heavily on him. Though he met Alberto as Marie, the bond they shared in his previous life as Rosemary remains. He sees that the current Alberto is foolishly lost, entangled in the thorns of the past. Desperate and trembling, Marie cries out that she cannot leave Alberto in such a state. With intense determination, she demands to know who truly owns this path of vengeance. Alberto stares back in stony silence, his expression unreadable and cold as the tension thickens. Marie presses him further, asking if he seeks revenge for himself or for the sake of Ronaldo. Alberto remains motionless and silent, offering no answer to the heavy questions being leveled at him. Predicting future bloodshed, Marie guesses that his true motive is to avenge the fallen Rosemary. Despite her intuition, she admits there is one crucial detail about this situation that feels strange. Marie reflects on the fact that if Rosemary is truly alive within her, then she is part of this legacy. She boldly asserts that she should have the right to claim vengeance before either of them do. Alberto's eye widens in pure shock as the weight of her declaration finally breaks his composure. Stunned, he stammers out the names of Marie and Rosemary as the reality of her words sinks in. Trembling with disbelief, Alberto struggles to process what Marie is actually saying to him. Marie lets out a soft chuckle, admitting she prefers Alberto's current face over one filled with hate. She makes a startling request, asking him to hand over the role and the desire for revenge to her. With a gentle but firm plea, she begs him to give the burden of this vengeance to her alone. Alberto reacts with visceral resistance, his mouth hanging open as he prepares to reject her offer. He shouts that there is absolutely no way he could ever allow her to do something so dangerous. Alberto declares he cannot push that responsibility onto her, but Marie insists she must be the one. Marie questions if seeing them covered in blood would actually make Rosemary happy in the first place. She asks them both if they truly believe that Rosemary would ever say thank you for such violence. A bead of sweat rolls down Alberto's face as he sinks into a pained, thoughtful silence. Marie challenges him to remember what part of Rosemary he actually appreciated and loved. Visions of the past flicker by as Marie recalls how much she truly loved both Alberto and Ronaldo. She remembers the deep bond they shared and how both men absolutely loved Rosemary in return. Tears well in her eyes as she begs them not to make Rosemary suffer through any more sadness. With her hands clasped in prayer, she pleads with Alberto to fulfill Rosemary's true wish instead. Alberto gazes at Marie with a softened expression, the conflict visible in his weary eyes. Even as he listens to her heartfelt plea, the shadow of his previous resolve remains. Alberto confesses that despite her words, he still finds it impossible to forgive the king. He then offers a compromise, asking if they should continue this journey of revenge together. Marie asks for permission to be the one who chooses the specific form this vengeance will take. Surprised by her request, Alberto can only utter a confused sound as he looks at her. Marie takes his hands and calls him her knight, pleading for his eternal support and trust. She reflects on the long-standing thoughts she has carried regarding their shared pain. Marie acknowledges there is no convenient way to abate the deep wounds and anger in their hearts. She decides that at the very least, Rosemary must be the one to act by her own hands. With a look of absolute resolve, Marie determines to take revenge for herself in her own way. Seeing her unshakable will, Alberto drops to his knees in a gesture of total submission and loyalty. He vows that as her knight, he will follow her lead wherever this path may go. Alberto calls her Marie once more, his voice filled with a new sense of devotion and plea. He asks for the honor of being allowed to protect her throughout the trials ahead. An unexpected visitor interrupts the emotional moment with a cough and an awkward greeting. The newcomer looks at the two of them and asks for an explanation of the scene before them. Marie is momentarily startled by the sudden presence of Prince Rizzle. Marie struggles to find the words to explain the complex situation to Prince Rizzle. She tells him that she must leave immediately to go and meet with Ronaldo. The prince addresses her with respect, his expression full of concern for her departure. To Marie's surprise, the prince firmly declares that he will also be going with them. He insists that waiting for an explanation is fine, as he is not a complete outsider to this issue. Marie worries about what will happen if Prince Rizzle learns the full truth about Rosemary and the revenge. She fears the prince will feel responsible for the tragedy and struggle to cope with the burden. Alberto intervenes, noting that the prince will eventually learn everything even if they try to hide it. He invites the prince to join them, promising to tell him everything he wants to know. Alberto prepares to lead the group into the next phase of their dangerous discussion. Addressing Marie and Prince Rizzle, Alberto announces he will take them to meet Duke Ronaldo. He informs them that Ronaldo is currently waiting for them in the audience chamber. Alberto explains how Ronaldo has been secretly working with anti-royalists to gather evidence against King Grey. According to Ronaldo's intelligence, over half of the central nobility are involved in the current plot. The powerful forces of the kingdom are on the move today, setting the stage for a major confrontation. Alberto reveals that all these maneuvers are ultimately for the sake of Rosemary's revenge. Marie looks on silently as Alberto confirms his role in the unfolding rebellion. The prince is identified as the one who was previously restrained and put to sleep during the chaos. Marie expresses a sudden, urgent desire for the prince to quickly ascend to the throne. This rebellion is designed to ensure that the current king is condemned by Ronaldo's actions. However, they must act carefully, as Ronaldo does not want the country to fall into chaos with an empty throne. Rizal explains that Ronaldo's rude behavior was a calculated mask to prevent the gentle prince from abandoning his country, knowing the prince would never refuse a direct plea. The realization hits home with staggering force, leaving the listener in a state of utter disbelief at the depth of the deception. Memories surface of the prince's kindness being a mere tool for vengeance against his father, despite how genuine those moments once felt. Looking back, the cold calculation in his gaze reveals a man who perfectly fits the ruthless reputation of Ronaldo. Ronaldo had identified the prince as a suitable vessel to become king because he was fundamentally different from his corrupt father. While using the prince as a pawn for revenge, Ronaldo's scary analytical ability allowed him to discover and cultivate every quality needed for a true ruler. The entire rebellion has been meticulously orchestrated in the shadows, involving high-level insiders working in total secrecy. Shocking evidence reveals that the guard knights currently deployed within the royal palace are actually anti-royalist plants. The anti-royalist private army has successfully neutralized the escort knight brigade, effectively tying their hands and seizing control. As the commander of the knights, Alberto has been the one strategically positioning these traitors throughout the palace. The faction created a loud disturbance outside as a diversion to mask the coup currently unfolding within the palace walls. With the distraction in place, the plan moves to its final phase, the complete takeover of the audience chamber. Calculating the timeline, the protagonist realizes that leaving the Rose territory just one day later would have changed everything. A sense of urgency and sweat beads on the brow as the gravity of the situation settles. This matter should have been over by now. Visions of Rosemary suggest she deliberately provided this slim chance for a counteroffensive. A fierce determination ignites in the protagonist's eyes, vowing not to let this hard-won opportunity go to waste. The heavy doors of the audience chamber stand as the final barrier to the heart of the kingdom's power. Inside the grand hall, a group of high-ranking officials sits bound and defeated at the foot of the throne. The king sits slumped and battered upon his throne, the weight of his impending downfall visible in his weary expression. The captured nobles, including those with graying hair and prestigious titles, tremble in their bonds as they face their captors. A stern, blond man in a commander's uniform stands tall, his imposing presence dominating the room as he looks down at the prisoners. The commander declares with absolute authority that the time of reckoning has arrived and they have all sinned. With arms outstretched, he confidently proclaims that the anti-royalist faction knows every single one of their secrets. Terror grips the faces of the bound nobles as the commander prepares to read the formal charges brought against them. He promises a systematic trial, addressing each crime one by one while offering them a chance to provide reasoning for their actions. With a sharp flip of the ledger, the commander signals the start of the judicial proceedings that will dismantle the old guard. The Earl of Oxford steps forward to read the specific charges against Duke Gastia and Viscount Dazzle, who flinch in fear. The list of crimes is extensive: drug smuggling, bribery, fraudulent tax declarations, and the ruthless exploitation of their own citizens. Viscount Dazzle cries out in shock as he is sentenced to immediate imprisonment and stripped of his noble title. Duke Gastia breaks into uncontrollable sobs upon hearing his sentence, the loss of his title and permanent exile from the country. The purge continues as Viscount Lifia is targeted next due to their deep-rooted and illicit connections. The commander stares coldly, noting that these charges and their subsequent convictions were all predetermined. While he admits to tempting them slightly, he asserts their guilt is their own doing and they will face a trial by the anti-royalist faction. A black crown sits amidst a pool of ink, symbolizing the end of the current reign and the effort to stabilize the country. Arrangements have been made to allow the relatives of the accused to raise concerns, ensuring the transition remains undisturbed. The narrative shifts, emphasizing that everything is proceeding exactly according to the faction's master plan. The commander looks toward the throne, his back to the viewer as the final judgment of the king looms. The focus narrows on the ultimate goal, the final condemnation of the man who once held absolute power. Once the men are dealt with, the commander turns his attention to the woman who remains at large. Guards spot their target in the hallway, pointing her out with a shout of triumph as she attempts to slip away. Queen Tia reacts with a calm, mocking, "Oh my," when asked to follow the soldiers back to the audience chamber. The queen notes the rudeness of the situation, observing that all the soldiers present are no longer loyal to her. Queen Tia claps her hands, summoning her personal assassins, Latte and Yuno, while announcing she won't be attending the party. Chaos erupts as the queen's private soldiers clash with the palace guards, catching the rebels off guard. With a graceful wave, the queen bids a final farewell to those attempting to capture her. She dismisses the palace with cold indifference, claiming she has finally had enough fun within its walls. As she turns to leave, she decides that now is the perfect time to make her grand exit. Rizzle watches in absolute horror, crying out for her mother as the reality of the queen's abandonment sinks in. The queen looks back with a shadowed, melancholy expression, her departure leaving Rizzle frozen in shock. Rizzle and another young woman stare at Queen Tia, their faces etched with confusion and rising panic. A man nearby grits his teeth in frustration, his jaw set as he watches the queen's brazen escape attempt. Rizzle remains paralyzed with a look of dawning terror, the weight of her mother's betrayal hanging heavy in the air. The queen dismisses Rizzle's cries, stating she is in a hurry and will see her later, treating the coup like a minor inconvenience. Desperate, Rizzle reaches out and demands to know where her mother could possibly be going at a time like this. The queen simply smiles back, leaving the answer to Rizzle's question a tantalizing and dangerous mystery. The onlookers are aghast, wondering if the queen truly intends to abandon the king and escape the palace entirely. Rizzle screams at her mother, accusing her of planning to run away from the palace in its darkest hour. Her voice cracks with emotion as she asks how the queen can leave without fulfilling any of her royal duties. The queen responds with genuine confusion, acting as if Rizzle's concerns about duty and loyalty are completely foreign to her. She explains with a chilling smile that she isn't starting over, she's simply moving on to start a brand new game. With a sinister, upside-down grin, the queen declares that all games must eventually come to an end when you die. The listener is left speechless, haunted by the queen's casual equation of her life and kingdom to a mere game. Tia's past is revealed, showing a woman who viewed her worthless father and stupid husband as nothing more than targets for tricks. Lounging over a chessboard, she expresses her boredom with the petty political games her family used to play. In the Danza's earldom, her father obsessed over rising in politics while her mother cared only for ruling social circles. A shattered reflection mirrors the chilling realization that in this life, there was never any love. Tia Danza's reflects on a childhood spent as a mere pawn in her father's cold political games. Hovering a hand over her, the father promises Tia happiness if she follows every instruction without question. Tia hollowly agrees to her father's demands while internally questioning the very definition of happiness. The young girl stands like a chess piece in the spotlight, haunted by the mystery of what happiness truly is. As she continues to act as his tool, her father's wealth accumulates through her silent obedience. Now grown, Tia looks back with a faint smile, wondering if this empty success is the happiness he promised. She realizes she has become just like her father, equating happiness with the cold accumulation of status. In the shadows of a bedroom, a man's voice calls out to her with a desperate affection. Prince Grey pours out his heart, declaring his absolute love for everything about her. Tia looks on with a mocking gaze, privately ridiculing the prince for falling in love with a woman like her. She finds a cruel amusement in the situation, admitting that playing with his emotions is actually a little fun. A flashback shows a woman warning Prince Grey that he mustn't engage with Tia. The prince snaps back, refusing to be lectured about his late-night activities. Tia recalls her immediate disdain for the woman named Rosemary. She envied Rosemary's natural popularity and the unwavering status she held without having to play games. Standing in the spotlight of high society, Tia revels in her own rising influence. Her inner malice peaks as she vows to take Rosemary down once and for all. Tia plots to peel Rosemary away from Grey and force her to drop out of their social game. Armed with the tactical skills learned from her father, Tia prepares to use a Hari card to seal Rosemary's fate. A dark vision shows a figure hanging from a gallows, hinting at the lethal stakes of Tia's schemes. Tia displays a wide, predatory grin as her plans for total domination begin to take shape. She successfully seduced Grey to become the queen, fulfilling every materialistic wish her father ever had. Draped in jewels like her mother, she bore a son and basked in the attention of many men. Despite achieving ultimate power and wealth, she stands alone against a web of darkness, Admitting this isn't fun. Tia questions her parents' legacy, wondering what they could have possibly found so enjoyable about this hollow life. The narrative shifts to her father's downfall as he is unceremoniously kicked out of the palace for losing the game. A trembling hand reaches out in desperation as her father's world collapses around him. He begs Tia for help, claiming he was set up and insisting she can save him because she is the queen. Tia coldly reminds him that the rules of his own game dictate that losers who can't escape must be destroyed. Ignoring his screams of despair, she notes he must uphold the same harsh rules he forced on everyone else. After her father became a loser, Tia cut him off and began researching the person who defeated him. A sharp-eyed man appears, representing a new and formidable challenge to Tia's reign. She identifies him as Ronaldo Rose, noting with interest that he shares the exact same eye color as Rosemary. A sinister smirk spreads across Tia's face as she anticipates a new conflict. She relishes Ronaldo's clear desire to take her down, eager to see the expression on his face when she wins. The silhouettes of Tia and her opponent face off across a table, prepared for a high-stakes confrontation. During their card game, Tia realizes her hand is horrid and the situation is turning against her. She observes her opponent's intense focus, feeling the pressure mount as the game slips away. For the first time, Tia admits to herself that she cannot win against this man. The sound of cards clattering on the table signals the end of the match as Tia's composure breaks. The victor advises her that when victory is impossible, one should simply run away in silence. He reminds her that these are the established rules of their world, and she should understand them well. A confused witness looks on, trying to grasp the weight of the exchange. Rizzle asks her mother what she is trying to say with such cryptic warnings. The mother warns that Rizzle may already be a pawn, destined to be moved by someone else's hand. The shock of the revelation is visible in a wide-eyed stare as the pawn metaphor takes hold. Queen Tia is described as having conducted all her palace dealings under the cold assumption of this game. It is revealed that she doesn't believe she is interacting with human lives at all, only game pieces. The weight of Tia Danza's cold philosophy hangs heavy over the room. A man with a stern expression commands the group to wait, halting the momentum. Witnesses realize with horror that Alberto plans to take his revenge on Queen Tia right then and there. Alberto approaches Tia Danza's with a determined stride as she is told to wait. Tia mockingly comments on Captain Makurin's scary face while Alberto's presence causes Rizzle to panic. She dismisses his anger, claiming she hasn't done anything to him since he wasn't even part of her game. The man remains silent, his fury simmering beneath the surface as he glares at the queen. He accuses her of taking actions that trampled over the hearts of those he treasured most. Tia offers a mock apology with a closed-eyed smile, showing no genuine remorse for her actions. Alberto questions if that hollow apology is all she has to say for her crimes. He demands to know if she has a heart, pointing out that her son's cries are right in front of her. He asks if she really intends to leave without facing those she has deceived and lied to. Rizzle watches in stunned silence as the confrontation between the captain and her mother reaches a breaking point. In a sudden explosion of violence, Alberto grabs the queen, forcing a physical confrontation. The two stare each other down with mutual intensity, the predator finally meeting the one who refuses to be a prey. Rizzle screams Alberto's name as the palace guards or witnesses watch the queen being held in a desperate grasp. Amused by the delay, the antagonist chuckles, noting that prolonging the conversation was worth it. Latte and Yuno suddenly appear on the scene, signaling the arrival the group has been waiting for. Stunned by the unexpected development, the protagonist stares in disbelief as the situation shifts. Two masked assassins swiftly ambush Rizzle, holding blades to his throat in a lethal pincer move. The protagonist's eyes widen in absolute shock as the realization of the trap sets in. Horrified, Marie realizes that Queen Tia has deployed her own private soldiers against her own son. The captors issue a cold ultimatum, demanding the group stand down if they want Rizzle to remain unharmed. Grit and fury take hold of Alberto as he stares down the betrayal with mounting rage. The queen mocks the gravity of the situation, laughing that a game should be played with such high stakes. She cruelly dismisses Rizzle as nothing more than a pawn used to facilitate her own escape. A heartbroken Rizzle weeps, asking his mother if he truly means so little to her. Without a shred of hesitation, the queen confirms his fears with a chillingly casual response. She reveals that she has been using him for her own ends since the very beginning. Rizzle stands paralyzed and broken, tears streaming down his face as his world shatters. Marie watches the tragedy unfold, her voice trembling as she calls out to Alberto. Alberto's expression hardens into a mask of grim determination as he processes Marie's plea. Marie desperately grabs onto Alberto, begging him to let go of his anger for the sake of the hostage. The Queen watches the display of emotion with a cold, detached silence. Marie urges Alberto to calm down, insisting that direct violence is not the answer they need right now. Though she understands his painful anger, she warns that killing the Queen now will only cause more death. She expresses faith that a day of true justice will come, where the Queen is judged by the law. Marie envisions a new era for the country, one ruled fairly under Prince Rizal's future leadership. Alberto closes his eyes and relents, forcing himself to suppress his murderous intent for the time being. He stands in silent, shaking restraint, acknowledging Marie's wisdom despite his own internal turmoil. The Queen demands that Marie have her allies lower their weapons and release her path. With a triumphant smirk, she orders Latte and Yuno to stand down, satisfied with her leverage. The Queen gloats over the lack of bloodshed before ordering a full retreat from the chamber. As she departs, she offers a mocking word of thanks to Marie for her cooperation. The room falls into a heavy silence as the enemy forces begin to withdraw. The Queen signals for her group to move out, making her exit as the tension finally breaks. A close-up reveals a clenched fist, symbolizing the unresolved fury left in the Queen's wake. Rizal is left devastated and sobbing, barely able to speak his mother's name as she abandons him. Marie approaches the broken prince, acknowledging his royal title with soft concern. Wiping his eyes, Rizal apologizes to Marie for showing such a pathetic side of himself. Marie gently takes his hands in hers, offering physical comfort to the grieving prince. Marie reflects on the tragedy, realizing both the Queen and the prince are victims of a distorted monarchy. She maintains her conviction that Rizal is the one who will eventually change the coming era. Though she feels powerless to fix his pain, she reaffirms her absolute faith in his character. She speaks his name with warmth, trying to ground him back in the present moment. In a tender gesture, she asks him to pour her a cup of his favorite tea once things finally calm down. The prince manages a small, genuine smile, touched by her simple and kind request. Marie smiles back, her eyes shining with relief and affection for her friend. The scene shifts as Alberto stands apart, his back to the group as he watches the exit. Marie approaches Alberto to thank him for not giving in to his rage during the crisis. Alberto clenches his fist, admitting he almost let his emotions control him and that Rizal should be the one to judge the Queen. Marie looks at him with a soft, understanding expression, acknowledging the difficulty of his restraint. They agree that once the immediate chaos has settled, they will find a permanent resolution. For now, the group must focus on the next immediate step of their journey. They prepare to move forward, making their way toward the figure known as Ronaldo. The title card for chapter, Condemnation, appears over a dramatic shot of the past and present. Marie's thoughts drift back to the palace corridor, noting that the trial chamber lies straight ahead. The ornate doors of the chamber stand as a grim reminder of the events that transpired within. Marie recalls that Rosemary knows this place all too well, haunted by the memories it holds. It was the very location where Rosemary was publicly condemned and stripped of her status. In a flashback, Rosemary is accused of a murder attempt against Queen Tia's life while she begs to be heard. Prince Grey coldly cancels their engagement, ignoring her desperate pleas of innocence. He stares her down with absolute contempt, warning her never to dream of being forgiven. The young Rosemary is left in tears, abandoned by those she once trusted. Back in the present, Marie gasps as she is suddenly pulled out of the painful memory. She is startled by a hand on her shoulder, bringing her back to the reality of the hallway. A voice asks her if she is all right, sensing her deep distress. Marie's face is flushed and tear-streaked as she struggles to regain her composure. Looking down, she offers a quick thanks and insists that she is fine. The scene shifts to a stern-faced king sitting upon his throne as a knight approaches the dais. The knight stands before the throne, his presence casting a long, imposing shadow across the hall. Ronaldo steps forward with a cold determination as he declares that the time for judgment has finally arrived. Standing before the trembling king, Ronaldo explains that the sentence for all the other sinners has already been carried out by his comrades. The revolutionary reveals that the king's supporters have most likely been relocated to the depths of the underground prison. With a piercing gaze, Ronaldo identifies the final target of his wrath as King Grey Dureza. Gray stares back in stunned silence as the weight of his isolation and impending doom begins to settle in. The king pathetically begs for mercy, but Ronaldo remains unmoved as he prepares to settle a lifelong debt. Haunted by memories of his childhood, Ronaldo reflects on the long years he spent waiting for this exact moment of vengeance. He steels his heart, recalling how the desire for revenge has been his sole driving force since he was a young boy. Ronaldo draws his blade and walks slowly toward the throne where the broken monarch sits in shadow. When Gray asks if he has come to kill him, Ronaldo scoffs at the obvious question and mocks the idea of offering any salvation. The king mentions Rosemary, prompting a flash of fury from Ronaldo, who warns him never to speak his sister's name again. Gray sneers that the brother of a sinner is a sinner himself, showing no remorse for his past actions. Infuriated by the continued disrespect, Ronaldo threatens to silence the king permanently for insulting his sister. The king doubles down on his cruelty, claiming that the blood of a murderer flows through Ronaldo's veins just like it did Rosemary's. Gray dismisses them as an unsightly family of traitors who rose against their own country. Ronaldo erupts in anger, shouting that his sister never intended to take a life despite the king's persistent lies. He realizes that the foolish king was completely blinded by the deceptive stories fed to him by Tia. Defending Rosemary's legacy, Ronaldo insists she gave everything she had to fix the broken nation. He brands Gray a pathetic man who chose to neglect the truth and abandon the woman who cared for him most. Ronaldo laments that his sister's death at the hands of such a weak and unworthy individual was a tragedy. He continues to berate the monarch, calling him a foolish king for never realizing he was being manipulated. Ronaldo points out that the king's inability to love his own son, Prince Rizzle, stems from his deep-seated distrust and the queen's manipulations. Unable to handle the harsh reality of his failures, Gray screams for the revolutionary to shut up. The king breaks into a fit of hysterical, hollow laughter that only deepens Ronaldo's disgust. Ronaldo gazes down at the crumbling man and feels a wave of sorrow for the sacrifices his sister made for him. He regrets that they didn't run away together before her life was consumed by the king's corruption. Thinking back to his own childhood, powerlessness and ignorance fills Ronaldo with a renewed sense of helpless rage. His eyes narrow with lethal intent as he focuses entirely on the task at hand. Addressing the memory of his sister, Ronaldo promises that the wait is almost over. He lifts his sword, vowing to purge the tyrant just like the heroes in the storybooks Rosemary used to love. The final hour has struck, and Ronaldo prepares to deliver the killing blow in the name of revenge. A sharp, cold silence fills the throne room as the blade begins its descent. For a brief moment, the image of a peaceful, praying girl flickers in the background of the violent confrontation. The heavy doors of the chamber are suddenly thrown open as a desperate scream echoes through the hall. A close-up reveals the wide, shocked eye of someone witnessing the unfolding scene. The perspective shifts to the vastness of the palace as the confrontation reaches its bloody climax. The sword strikes true, leaving a spray of blood across the floor of the throne room. King Gray gasps in pain, clutching a fresh wound as his strength begins to fail. The sword gleams in the light, stained with the price of years of suffering. Ronaldo stands over his fallen enemy, his expression unreadable as the palace echoes with the sound of a bowstring snapping. Prince Rizzle rushes into the room, desperately calling out for his father. The young prince's voice cracks with terror as he sees the king collapsed and bleeding. Gray looks up weakly, his face pale as he sees his son approaching the danger. The massive pillars of the palace cast long shadows over the tragic family reunion. Ronaldo turns to face the newcomer, questioning why Prince Rizzle has chosen to interfere at this moment. A stern guard stands by the entrance, watching the scene with a conflicted expression. Ronaldo's eye remains fixed on the prince, warning him of the consequences of stepping forward. The prince stares back, his face filled with a mixture of grief and a determination to stop the cycle of violence. Ronaldo's expression softens slightly as he looks at the boy, but his resolve remains firm. Rizzle stands his ground, shielding the fallen king from any further attacks. Ronaldo commands the prince not to get involved, his sword still drawn and ready. The prince remains silent, his gaze heavy with the weight of his family's sins. Ronaldo explains that harming the prince was never part of the plan and promises safety if he simply watches. He tells the boy to stay still, insisting that the king and queen have earned the hatred of the people. Ronaldo warns that any further resistance will result in the prince being cut down for real. He refuses to listen to a lecture, noting that Rizzle's desire to save his father is misplaced given the king's crimes. The revolutionary reminds him of the sheer number of sins committed by the royal couple. He makes it clear that no words will ever be enough to halt his quest for justice. Ronaldo declares that his revenge is an unstoppable force that must be completed. A nearby woman watches the exchange, claiming she understands the depth of this hatred better than anyone. She questions how the prince even managed to convince his allies to let him come this far. Ronaldo's eye narrows as he makes one final plea to be allowed to finish his work. The woman calls out Ronaldo's name, her voice trembling with emotion. She reminds him of a broken promise, that he would never make her suffer like this. Ronaldo finally lowers his gaze, a single word of acknowledgement escaping his lips as the tension remains unbroken. Rosemary gazes downward with a somber expression, her heart heavy as she pleads for an end to any thoughts of revenge. Confirming her previous stance, she softly reaffirms the desire to move past the cycle of hatred. Deeply emotional, she confesses her wish to keep the day's painful events hidden from view. The narrative reveals a resolute decision made deep within a heart, where the shadow of that day's revenge still looms even if Rosemary herself holds no grudge. A man remains metaphorically bound by heavy chains, representing the crushing weight of everything he has become. Crying out in anguish, he begs Rosemary to stop her tears, unable to bear her sorrow. He desperately reassures her that none of the tragedy is her fault. Marie rushes up the grand staircase in a frantic hurry as someone calls out her name. A man is struck with sudden shock, his eyes widening as he breathes out a startled "S." Overcome with guilt, a woman repeatedly offers a tearful and broken apology. Rosemary's words pour out uncontrollably as she apologizes to Ronaldo for leaving him behind and causing him constant pain. The weight of her regret is absolute as she expresses her deepest and most sincere apologies. The two figures are locked in a poignant, tearful embrace amidst a backdrop of falling snow. A close-up reveals a stunned expression as the name Ronaldo hangs in the air. The focus intensifies on a gaze filled with realization and lingering sorrow for Ronaldo. The narrative reflects on the tragedy of a life transformed into a singular, hollow pursuit of revenge. In a cruel twist of fate, the realization dawns that Rosemary herself was the one who inadvertently set this path in motion. Ronaldo's entire existence is stained by a sin that cannot be undone, for time and life never truly return. Rosemary weeps uncontrollably, her face contorted in agony as she acknowledges the blood-stained nature of her past. The chapter titled, "In My Own Way," marks a pivotal moment of emotional reckoning. Turning to Ronaldo with tears streaming down her face, she declares she won't stop him if he chooses to see his revenge through. In a shocking display of self-sacrifice, she asks him to include her in his punishment. Stunned by her request, he reacts with confusion and disbelief at what she is suggesting. He shouts in a protective fury, declaring that the sin belongs entirely to others and his sister must never be punished. A somber voice acknowledges the truth of the situation amidst the darkness. Rosemary insists she must atone for the sin of stealing his happiness, even if others committed crimes as well. She questions what truly constitutes a sin as she looks at Ronaldo with a weary, tearful gaze. Rosemary identifies her true sin as the current state of the man before her, a demon of vengeance, who can never return to who he once was. Desperate to change his future, she vows to break the chains of revenge that bind him from this moment forward. Looking directly at him, she proclaims that her only true desire is to see him happy. A hand grips the hilt of a sword, the tension in the room reaching a breaking point. Stuttering in emotional turmoil, he struggles to find words as he faces her heart-wrenching declaration. He cries out that it's too late for such words, his voice cracking with the weight of years spent in darkness. Tears stream down his face as he despairs that he can no longer go back to the person he was. Rosemary smiles through her tears, vowing to fill the void of everything he has lost and make him happy from now on. She gently contradicts him, insisting that he hasn't lost everything. In a moment of profound connection, they recognize that they were once everything to each other. The memory of having her alone was enough to sustain him through the darkest times. He screams in agony, demanding to know why she left him alone for so long. The narrative describes the distortion born in Reinhardt's childhood, a chain of dependence and resentment that she finally hopes to untangle so he can breathe. Standing face to face with Reinhardt's true feelings at last, she feels the sharp pain of his long-held suffering. A vision of the past shows a tender, protective embrace between the siblings in their youth. Reinhardt's current face is a mask of pure, unbridled grief as he lets out a harrowing cry. Collapsing into her lap, Reinhard weeps openly while declaring his deep love for his sister. Rosemary gazes down at him with immense tenderness, tearfully reciprocating his love. Albert and a woman look on, their expressions filled with a complex mixture of shock and realization. A sense of purpose takes hold, acknowledging that this very moment is why they have arrived here. Reflecting on a decade-old promise, the narrative notes that 10 years have passed since Reinhard and his companion swore to save Rosemary. The focus shifts to the definitive method of breaking the cycle, a path that does not wish for vengeance. Rosemary's face is serene as she firmly states her refusal to pursue revenge any longer. Her only remaining wish is expressed with a gentle, tearful smile. She clarifies that her heart's true desire is solely for his future and his happiness. Two fists are shown side by side, symbolizing a pact or a shared burden, as the name Albert is invoked. The scene shifts back 10 years to the moment Reinhard and Albert pledge to work together to save Rosemary. The narrator admits a lingering uncertainty regarding Reinhard's ultimate goal. Past Reinhard instructs Albert to be a good knight and win the trust of Prince Rizuru, even as he seethes with hatred for King Grey. A young Reinhard vows never to forgive the king and swears his life to revenge while Albert is introduced to Prince Rizuru. The focus lingers on a young Albert's stoic and observant expression. The weight of their shared history and secret words hangs over every interaction, fueling a hidden agenda. The narrative emphasizes that everything they do is for the singular moment of revenge that lies ahead. In the present, Prince Rizuru asks a distracted Albert if something is wrong, prompting a quick, polite dismissal. Albert reflects internally on his growing fondness for the prince, despite Rizuru being the son of his target for revenge. A dark hypothetical haunts his thoughts. What if the plan eventually demands the prince's death? He wonders if he could truly raise his sword against someone he has come to care for. Albert tries to push these thoughts aside, hoping for a future for the prince that remains untouched by the flames of revenge. A gentle hand holds a picture book for young Rosemary, noting how much she truly loves the story. The young woman asks Ronaldo if he wants to read together, and the boy happily agrees. Albert enters the room, expressing his own desire to join them in their reading. With a warm smile, the group agrees to read the story together as a shared moment. Rosemary recalls adoring the knight from the book who judged the king and saved the princess. The narrative shifts to a close-up of weeping eyes as a somber, but hangs in the air. As she grew older, Rosemary realized the dark and heavy truth behind the word judgment. Time has passed, and Ronaldo, once just a small boy, has grown into a man calling out to his sister. Crying, Rosemary begs for just a little more time, stating there is something she must do. A startled realization dawns as it becomes clear that Ronaldo intends to judge the king. The perspective shifts to a wide shot of a lone figure approaching the king upon his throne. Ronaldo stands defiantly before King Grey Tiresias, who looks on with a sweat-beaded, nervous expression. Ronaldo holds up a legal writ, demanding the king look closely at the list of every crime committed. He points out the signatures of nobles and lords who have confirmed these royal transgressions. With a cold gaze, Ronaldo Rose declares that he is now authorized to pass sentences. He lists the king's violations, including the trampling of people and years of embezzled taxes. A single foot steps forward as the speaker prepares to deliver a final, personal ultimatum. With burning hatred in his eyes, he reveals his desire to hang the king just as the king killed his sister. Ronaldo suddenly shocks the room by leaving the choice of punishment to Lady Marie Edigma. The scene pauses on a dramatic transition, marking a shift in the momentum of the confrontation. King Grey is left stammering in shock while Marie and Albert watch the scene unfold. The king is told he will listen, as the speaker expresses gratitude for the mercy being shown. Marie stares in stunned silence, barely processing that the king's punishment is happening right now. A dark, looming void emphasizes the internal realization that she finally understands the situation. The narrator reveals that both Ronaldo and Albert have lived their entire lives for this revenge. A shattered crown lies on the floor, symbolizing that only judgment in Rosemary's words will suffice. Marie clutches her chest in agony, questioning if she truly has the strength to do this. She wonders if she can weave the right words that the vengeful men will actually accept. Her goal is to find an ending more peaceful than the one found in that old picture book. Steeling her resolve through her tears, she tells herself that she has no choice but to proceed. The camera focuses on her eyes, shifting from sorrow to a sharp, determined glare. Marie stands tall before the seated king and the judging Ronaldo in the center of the great hall. The king looks up in sheer terror, his face contorted with the fear of impending doom. Marie reflects that King Grey knew nothing of the truth when he originally condemned Rosemary. She recalls how inhumane the king's face looked during those dark days of the past. A brief moment of inner peace passes through her as she simply states that she is glad. She looks at the king and notes that even seeing him this close, her hatred no longer rises. She addresses King Grey Tiresias directly, informing him that he is the one being judged now. With absolute authority, she prepares to finally pronounce the royal sentence. The scene dwells on the regal profile of the woman about to change the fate of the kingdom. A close-up reveals her cold, steady gaze as she looks down upon the fallen monarch. The king panics, wondering who this woman is as she formally begins his pronouncement. The king tries to guess her identity, wondering if she is a subordinate or someone Ronaldo trusts. He realizes there is a familiar air about her, an aura he has encountered somewhere before. She commands the king to take responsibility and abdicate the crown to Prince Rizuru. The sentence continues as she prepares to add further conditions to his removal from power. She demands he publicly apologize to the people for the crimes Ronaldo has uncovered. He must admit Rosemary's execution was a mistake and clear her name so she may rest in peace. The king is horrified, demanding to know how she could possibly know about events from 20 years ago. She reveals that Rosemary Hubert always wanted him to act like a true king. Rosemary's past actions were intended to prevent this exact disastrous outcome for the throne. Marie echoes the sentiment that the nation belongs to the people, and the king only holds it in trust. The weight of the statement hangs in the air, repeating the core philosophy of a just ruler. King Grey screams in shock, recognizing those specific words as the ones Rosemary spoke once before. The king is visually overwhelmed by the realization that his past has finally caught up to him. Marie looks on with a hollow expression, noting that despite those words, he still committed his crimes. The king stares at her, trembling as he realizes her expression is identical to the woman he killed. She coldly informs him that once these tasks are completed, his current life is effectively over. He is to be confined for the rest of his life in the White Tower, a prison for wayward royals. She notes that only a select few even know that the secret royal prison exists. The king is left reeling, unable to comprehend how a common woman could know these royal secrets. She confirms that his confinement in the tower will last for the remainder of his life. Startling the king further, she adds that only Prince Rizuru will be permitted to visit him. The king laughs manically, accusing Rizuru of filling the woman's head with these ideas to bring him down. Rizuru looks at his father with a look of pity and cold detachment, simply stating, "It wasn't me." Marie watches silently as the weight of the moment hangs heavy in the air. Rizuru approaches the throne, acknowledging that despite the king's many sins and his reputation as a foolish ruler, he remains his father. The young prince maintains a stoic and resolute expression as he faces the man who once ruled. King Grey reacts with a bitter scowl, clicking his tongue in clear irritation at his son's presence. Rizuru looks down at the fallen king, admitting he is simply glad his father's life was spared despite the inevitable judgment. He declares coldly that a king who neglects his duty is destined to lose his throne. Clutching his head in despair, the broken king realizes too late that he has fallen into a meticulously planned trap. Visions of the manipulative chancellors and the woman Tia haunt him as he realizes he was merely a pawn in their game. Rizuru confirms his father's suspicions, noting that the king did nothing but play around even while being used. With a piercing gaze, the prince tells his father there was so much more he could have done for the kingdom. The former king snaps, demanding silence and ordering his son to watch his tongue. He lashes out with a cruel insult, questioning the very legitimacy of Rizuru's birth. Unfazed by the venomous words, Rizuru firmly asserts his identity as the king's true son. As Marie looks on with a somber expression, Rizuru vows to shoulder the wounds and stains the king left on their history. He stands tall and announces his intention to officially take the throne. The new king promises that while it will take a long time, he will heal the realm. King Grey collapses into a fit of groans and despair, completely broken by his son's words. Observers note that Prince Rizuru has truly grown into a fine and capable man. A high-ranking official reflects on how Rizuru learned by turning his own father's failures into a cautionary lesson. Marie thinks to herself that the king's downfall was inevitable because he never truly listened to anyone or saw Rizuru as his son. She believes that the king could have stood tall like Rizuru if he had chosen a different path. She promises to face him as a daughter once she has proven herself worthy. The former king lets out a final, pathetic cry as his reign officially ends in disgrace. The royal knights arrive to unceremoniously escort the fallen King Gray away. The man who once held absolute power has become shockingly meek and compliant. As he is led past Marie, he is so diminished that one would doubt he was ever the formidable King Gray. Even in the face of this tragedy, there is a sense of somber resolution. Marie reflects that this bloodless transition is a far better ending for the family than a public execution. The connection between the characters is revealed as the true reason for Rosemary's rebirth. A vision of their shared past and future unity manifests as the new era begins. From the confines of a moving carriage, the former king wonders where everything went wrong. He stares blankly as the reality of his exile begins to sink in. Seated in the dark, he searches his memories for the turning point of his failure. The carriage travels further away from the palace he once called home. He asks his guard how much longer the journey to the White Tower prison will take. The guard replies stoically that they have about half a day of travel remaining. The guard notes that by Prince Rizur's order, they must still treat the criminal former king with basic decorum. The fallen king laughs hollowly, wondering if his son's order is an act of mercy or mockery. He remembers the shadows of the palace where people constantly pressured him to sign away the realm's prosperity. A haunting image depicts him as a puppet, controlled by the invisible strings of his court. He recalls being surrounded by sycophants who only wanted to win his favor for political power. The former king admits that eventually, the burden of ruling became a complete hassle. He remembers the moment his authority was finally challenged. He recalls how his body froze when Reinhard finally closed in on him to end his rule. He wonders if things would be different if he had simply run away in that moment. The weight of his loneliness during his reign becomes an unbearable memory. He realizes with bitterness that not one person who toyed with him ever truly reached out to help him. The carriage continues its lonely journey through the woods toward his new life of imprisonment. He tries to tell himself that thinking about the past is useless, yet he cannot stop. He remembers the court as a place where he was always terrified and hurried by the demands of others. The result of his weakness was a legacy where he ended up being hated by his own people. The guard tells him he will have plenty of time to think about his sins inside the White Tower. The sound of heavy metal chains clanging signals his arrival at the destination. In the darkness of his new cell, he weakly insists that he has no sins to account for. The guard remarks that he is surprisingly quiet compared to most deniers who try to fight or run. The former king simply sighs, stating that he is tired and has no fight left in him. He realizes with finality that nothing he does now can change the course of history. The guard leaves him to rest, closing the door on his former life forever. He finds himself remembering a woman from his youth who used to scold him frequently. He recalls being told that he would be staying in a new place for a while. The memory of being called Prince Gray echoes back to a time of innocence. The woman in his memory kindly invites the young prince to visit the library with her. She shows him a book on history, noting that its clear diagrams make it an engaging read. A younger, happier version of Gray listens to her with an attentive smile. She gently encourages the prince to attend his lessons properly, as his tutors are waiting. In a moment of deep regret, Prince Gray reflects on his health and decides to take a much-needed rest. Haunted by the past, Gray laments not holding onto Rosemary's hand and dismisses her as a bothersome woman. Looking dejected, he wonders if his current path would be different had he simply listened to her words. Gray recalls a significant memory of visiting the royal graves during a rare, solitary outing with Rosemary. Standing amidst the somber forest, the two figures remain silent near a weathered stone monument. Rosemary offers a gentle smile through her mourning veil while Gray watches her with a heavy, conflicted gaze. Breaking the silence, Gray asks Rosemary what she prayed for during their time at the gravesite. Clasping her hands in prayer, Rosemary reveals she asked the spirits to protect Lord Gray. Despite the difficult road ahead, she wished for their ancestors to grant him their eternal blessings. In the present, Gray questions why Rosemary still dominates his thoughts as he broods in solitude. Suddenly, a vision of a defiant woman appears, declaring her absolute condemnation of him. He wonders if he is drawn to this new woman simply because she resembles the late Rosemary. Gripping his head in frustration, Gray curses the persistent memories that refuse to let him go. Closing his eyes, he succumbs to a dream that feels more like a haunting vision of his own end. The terrifying dream repeats a cycle where Gray is executed over and over again by a cold blade. Exhausted by the struggle, he thinks that dying peacefully in his sleep might be an easier fate. A carriage travels through the woods as Gray compares his lack of will to that of a mindless puppet. The fallen king sits in silence, appearing broken and unrecognizable from his former royal stature. A sharp-eyed woman dismisses his plight with a cold, indifferent shrug. She insults the ex-puppet king, telling him to rot in his dreams until death finally claims him. In a flashback to brighter days, a young Prince Rizzle discusses crown designs, eager to distance himself from his father's legacy. The title episode, A Quiet Flame, marks a shift in the narrative focus. A brief declaration confirms that the long and bloody rebellion has finally reached its conclusion. Prince Rizzle stands tall in his ceremonial attire, ready to face the new era he has forged. Following his address to the people, it is certain that Rizzle will soon be crowned as the new king. Despite their central roles in the coup, Ronaldo and Alberto avoid charges and work tirelessly to repay their country. Ronaldo confirms to Rizzle that the official coronation ceremony is scheduled to take place in just 1 week. Rizzle admits to his confidant that the prospect of becoming king and following his father is terrifying. Ronaldo encourages him to keep walking with his head high, noting there is no time left for fear. Stealing his resolve, Rizzle agrees to move forward and embrace his destiny as a true king. Alberto, the Ice Duke, remains stoic, prompting a comment about his rare lack of emotion. Alberto stares ahead with his characteristic intensity, focused entirely on his duties. He is advised to smile occasionally, lest his face freeze in its current grim expression. The conversation turns to the Night Order, which still contains members loyal to the former king. Alberto explains that recruitment is on hold as they are overwhelmed with restructuring the current ranks. Looking concerned, Alberto asks if Marie is getting enough rest after all they put her through. Ronaldo reassures him that Marie will be fine and suggests they go visit her together today. Alberto's mood brightens at the prospect of visiting Marie and enjoying her home cooking. Ronaldo hopes to bring Marie back as a maid for the Night Order once the transition is complete. Rizzle interjects with a smirk, revealing that Marie is actually coming with him to the Rose Domain. They conclude that the final decision regarding her future will ultimately be left to Marie herself. The scene shifts to a large, quiet estate where Marie has been residing in peace. Inside, Marie's brother lounges on a sofa and cheekily demands that she bring him some tea. Marie retorts sharply, reminding her brother that she is no longer his personal maid. Despite her protest, Marie kindly serves the tea, earning a playful compliment from her brother. Marie reflects on her current life, staying with her brother while he works at the palace. Since Rizzle's search for a fiancé is paused, all the maids were sent home, allowing Marie a normal life. Her brother urges her to grab some sweets as she heads toward the door. Marie enjoys the simple rhythm of her normal life, though she feels a world of change has occurred. Thinking of recent events, Marie is startled by the sudden appearance of her brother at the door. He asks Marie if she remembered that Duke Rose and Lord Maclean were supposed to arrive today. Realizing she is late, Marie rushes off to prepare a proper dinner for her high-ranking guests. She thanks her brother for the reminder, even as they continue their playful bickering over the tea. With a wave, Marie heads out into the village to gather supplies for the evening meal. Her brother watches her go, noting with a smile that Marie finally looks truly happy. Marie walks through a bustling market, enjoying the vibrant atmosphere of the town. Later, Ronaldo and Alberto arrive at the house, greeted by a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Marie serves them a humble, home-style meal, feeling slightly embarrassed by its simplicity. Both men are visibly moved, stating they prefer her delicious cooking to any court cuisine. Blushing, Marie tells them that compliments won't get them any extra servings. The three friends share a moment of genuine laughter and joy around the dinner table. Marie expresses her sincere relief at seeing both of them safe and well after the rebellion. Ronaldo produces an envelope, explaining he has brought a personal letter from Prince Rizzle. Marie's brother teases her about being on friendly terms with the prince, while she denies worming her way in. Marie stares at the letter from Rizzle, her mind filled with thoughts of the future king. Marie admires Prince Rizzle's beautiful handwriting while reflecting on the fact that they haven't met face-to-face since the Day of Judgment. She notes that she has never once told him about her reincarnation. Rizzle acknowledges that there are likely things about Marie he doesn't know and things that are beyond his understanding. Vowing to do his duty as king to make her days easy to live, Rizzle sends letters that always end with words of love. The prince closes his correspondence with a prayer for Marie's peace and a request for her to stay well. Marie realizes this is the last letter and is certain it has ended with a final farewell. Expressing her gratitude, Marie wishes for Prince Rizzle to become a fine king. Rinaldo informs Alberto that he has delivered the letter and, judging by the prince's state, he won't be sending any more to Marie. He observes that Rizel has changed since the incident and is now a man fit to be king with his eyes fixed on his duty. Rinaldo confidently claims that winning Lady Marie's heart will now come down to either himself or Alberto. When Rinaldo asks if he is wrong, Alberto stares back with a silent, intense gaze. Alberto flatly declares that he is not giving up on Marie. Rinaldo smiles and expresses his appreciation for Alberto's honesty. He reveals that he holds a decree from the next king in recognition of Alberto's service to the kingdom. The decree grants Alberto a portion of the Hubert domain that had previously been seized. Rinaldo presents the reward to a stunned Alberto, who asks what it is. He explains that the decree officially makes Alberto a duke. This promotion means that Alberto will now be Rinaldo's equal in status. Alberto questions the meaning of this as Rinaldo mentions his own possession of the Rose domain. Rinaldo explains that their precious hometown, the Hubert territory, was returned by the crown and he won't hand it to just anyone. Looking at his companion with a smirk, Rinaldo affirms that he trusts Alberto most of all. He tells Alberto to take good care of the domain as the finality of the gift settles in. Rinaldo challenges Duke Maclean to compete for Marie's affection from a fair and equal footing. A portrait captures the resolve of the newly appointed duke and the woman at the center of the rivalry. Marie Edigma is led through the palace as she prepares for the momentous occasion. The day has finally arrived for the transition of power. Crowds gather at the palace for the memorable coronation where Prince Rizel will become king. Guests assemble in the grand hall as the ceremony begins to unfold. A sudden silence falls over the room as the presence of the royals is announced. The atmosphere thickens with anticipation for the arrival of the new monarch. The grand doors swing open to reveal the procession entering the hall. Marie watches in awe as King Rizalou appears, noting the regal shift in his presence. She observes that the innocent look he once had is completely gone. Lord Rinaldo stands tall and gorgeous, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. Marie is overwhelmed by the sight of both men looking so powerful and different. She finds the presence of the new king and the duke to be absolutely stunning. The crown is prepared to be placed upon the new sovereign's head. Rizalou bows his head with solemnity as he receives the symbol of his ultimate authority. The crown is set, finalizing his ascension to the throne. Rinaldo proclaims glory to the kingdom of Durezza as the ceremony concludes. The hall erupts in cheers as the people celebrate the new king of Durezza. Marie watches with a mixture of pride and realization as the event marks a new era. Rinaldo looks back with an unreadable expression as the festivities continue. Back at Stanley's house, a conversation begins about how unusual it is for someone of Marie's status to attend the coronation. Marie's brother questions why she was there, prompting her to explain that both Duke Rose and King Rizalou invited her. Her brother accuses her of pulling strings and mentions rumors about her being favored by Duke Rose. Marie frantically denies pulling strings while her brother jokingly asks her to pull some for his promotion. She reflects on how the connection is so unlikely that no one would believe she was personally requested by Lord Rizel. Despite the confusion, she is glad she attended because the two of them looked beautiful. Her brother tells her they must make a proper impression at the court ball celebrating the coronation. Marie reveals that Rinaldo actually offered to escort her himself, though she told him not to do anything weird. Fearing it was a bad idea, she asked her brother to escort her instead while he remains focused on networking. Marie prepares for the ball by wearing the dress that Rinaldo gifted to her. She completes her look with a specific rose hairpiece. Standing in her full attire, Marie is a vision of elegance in the dark, ruffled gown. She thinks to herself that the gift is so very him. Marie declares she is ready and heads out to meet up with her brother. She enters the crowded event, overwhelmed by the sheer number of people in attendance. Searching through the throng, Marie calls out for her brother. A voice suddenly calls out to her, addressing her as Lady Marie. Alberto, dressed in impressive armor, approaches and asks if something is wrong. Marie is startled and relieved to see Sir Alberto. She explains she is looking for her brother and asks Alberto if he is currently on patrol. Marie notes that she has decided to address him as Sir Alberto, dropping the informal tone she used under Rosemary's influence. She recognizes that Alberto now stands above her in status, unlike Lord Stanley. Marie spots a man at the smoking area while she prepares for the upcoming festivities. Sir Alberto blushes deeply while asking Marie if she thinks he looks good in his formal attire. Marie remains momentarily speechless as she takes in his unfamiliar and striking appearance. Alberto offers a warm, gentle smile while confirming that Marie looks very beautiful herself. Grateful for the compliment, Marie smiles back as the two stand together in their elegant ball outfits. Marie returns the praise, telling Sir Alberto that he looks truly wonderful in his nightly formal wear. Alberto thanks her but admits he is still not used to wearing such fancy, restrictive clothing. He confesses it has been ages since he last wore ceremonial attire, making it hard to even imagine swinging a sword. Marie giggles and playfully tells Alberto that being too earnest is a trait that suits him perfectly. Alberto turns the question back to Marie, asking if she truly prefers this formal look on him. Marie takes a moment to think before responding to his earnest inquiry about his outfit. She honestly admits that while he looks great now, he seems most natural and fits best in his usual night uniform. Alberto agrees with a smile, feeling a sense of relief that they share the same sentiment. Marie beams with happiness, telling Alberto that he is such a wonderful knight he could look great in anything. Alberto is momentarily stunned by her direct and heartfelt praise. The moment is interrupted as a guard announces that Lord Stanley has just arrived at the palace. Alberto bids Marie a temporary farewell, heading off to attend to his duties as she watches him go. Stanley approaches Marie and teases her about being amazing for having such a warm chat with the workaholic knight. He continues to talk about Sir Alberto's unusual behavior while they walk through the palace halls. Stanley remarks that it's the first time he's seen the serious knight chatting so warmly while on duty. Marie realizes Alberto was likely looking out for her while she was alone and deliberately stayed until Stanley arrived. She whispers a quiet thanks to Alberto's retreating figure as Stanley prepares to lead her away. Stanley comments on the rare amount of attention Marie is receiving from the other guests. Hoping to avoid weird rumors, Marie and Stanley decide to move quickly toward the main event. Nearby noblewomen whisper about how rare it is to see anyone chatting so familiarly with Sir Alberto. A mysterious, sharp-eyed man watches the scene unfold with an unreadable expression. The man narrows his eyes, focusing intently on the pair as they navigate the crowded room. King Grey appears in a comical, blushing state, feeling happy because his outfit apparently suits him well. The title card officially introduces episode, The Night of the Ball. The grand exterior of the palace glows under the night sky as the ball finally begins. Guests gather in the opulent foyer, filled with the sounds of chatter and anticipation. Stanley explains to Marie that they will enter the ballroom once their names are called at the reception. The reception area remains busy as the staff prepares to announce the next set of prestigious guests. The announcer calls out the names of Stanley Edigma and Marie Edigma as they step forward. Marie internally confesses that she is incredibly nervous about making her grand entrance. The camera pans across the elaborate architecture of the ballroom as the guests begin to settle in. King Rizuru stands tall and composed, prepared to lead the evening's festivities. The king offers a serene and welcoming smile to the gathered nobility. A split view shows the king and another guest sharing a moment of quiet confidence. The festivities continue with guests enjoying the refined atmosphere of the royal event. Signs warn the guests to be careful not to spill their drinks during the celebration. A close-up shows a hand raising a glass of dark wine in a celebratory gesture. The king raises his glass high, calling out a toast to the success of the day. The entire room erupts in a collective cheers, as glasses are raised in unison. Musicians play elegant melodies on flutes and violins to set the mood for the dance. Marie is delighted to find Tourigian shrimp meuniere being served at the banquet. She marvels at the incredible freshness of the seafood being served to the guests. Stanley explains that the shrimp are brought to the castle alive and cooked right before serving. They continue to feast on amazing salad spring rolls, enjoying the high-quality gourmet food. Stanley jokes that an Edigma will always pick good food over dancing any day. The crowd's attention shifts as someone announces that the king's dance is about to begin. The king dances with a partner rumored to be a married relative to avoid any scandalous gossip. The king looks dashing and content as he glides across the floor during the lovely dance. Stanley turns to Marie, signaling that it is time for them to join the floor. He confidently presents himself, ready to take his sister's hand for a dance. Stanley asks Marie if she already has a partner, suggesting they should go dance together. A new voice interrupts, asking Marie if she would care to dance with him instead. Marie looks over to find Ronaldo standing there, looking elegant in his formal suit. She is stunned to see Ronaldo, who is dressed impeccably for the ball. Ronaldo compliments Marie, telling her that her outfit suits her exceptionally well. Marie blushes and thanks him, noting that it's all thanks to the lovely things he gave her. Ronaldo smoothly asks if he may accept her thanks in the form of a dance. Marie gazes at him with sparkling eyes, clearly moved by his invitation. She places her hand in his and accepts the invitation gladly. As they begin to dance, Ronaldo asks Marie who her very first dance of the night was with. Marie reflects on the isolation of small-town life, noting that girls there rarely have the chance to meet many men. A man sharply questions if it is true that not a single soul asked her to dance during her debut. The pair glides across the floor, locked in a graceful embrace as they dance together. He remarks on how gracefully she dances now, thinking back to the days when they were both young. Marie admits she no longer feels anything for her sister, Rosemary, though she knows her sister would be surprised by this change. Memories flash back to the moment Ronaldo was finally liberated from the suffocating chains of revenge. In that moment of release, Marie felt a profound and unprecedented connection to Rosemary's lingering emotions. The metaphorical chains shatter and fall away, signaling a final break from the past. She clarifies that it isn't exactly a lack of feeling, but rather something more complex. Marie struggles to explain the sensation of her internal world finally blending together into something new. As they continue to dance, she recalls her childhood dream of sharing a dance with her sister and suspects Rosemary felt the same. Looking at her partner, she expresses her genuine happiness at being able to dance with him in this moment. The grand ballroom is filled with the silhouettes of other couples moving to the music. The man offers a respectful bow as the dance comes to a formal conclusion. Flustered and breathless, Marie considers stepping outside for some air after her dance with Ronaldo. She finds a quiet spot on the balcony, looking out over the evening landscape. Marie takes a deep, steadying breath to compose herself in the solitude of the night. She stands alone under the glow of the full moon, unaware that someone is approaching. A pushy stranger interrupts her solitude, asking if Lady Edigma is alone and boldly requesting a dance. Feeling cornered, Marie tries to decline by claiming she is keeping her brother waiting. The man refuses to take no for an answer, insistently pressuring her for just a little bit of her time. Marie becomes increasingly uncomfortable and hesitant under the stranger's unwanted attention. She internally recoils, having no desire to be friendly with a man who won't even introduce himself. Suddenly, a firm hand intercedes as a new voice asks if something is the matter. The newcomer is revealed to be Albert, whose sudden appearance catches both Marie and the stranger off guard. Marie looks up at Albert with an expression of immense relief. Albert stands tall and imposing, his presence immediately shifting the power dynamic on the balcony. Tension crackles between the three as Albert's cold gaze fixes on the persistent stranger. Albert sternly orders the man to return to the hall, noting that a dim, isolated place is no spot for a lady to face trouble. The stranger mutters a hasty excuse and begins to retreat under Albert's watchful eye. Once they are alone, Albert turns his attention back to Marie, addressing her softly. With a gentle smile, Albert asks if he may be allowed the honor of escorting her. Blushing, Marie quickly accepts his offer and reaches out to take his hand. Albert leads her away, but Marie soon notices they are heading in an unexpected direction. She realizes with a start that they have walked right past the entrance to the ballroom. Confused, she points out that the ballroom is actually back the way they came. Marie looks up at him with wide, questioning eyes, wondering what Sir Albert is planning. Albert sheepishly admits he's spaced out and asks if she is all right after the earlier confrontation. Marie offers him a warm, sincere smile and thanks him for stepping in to help her. She admits that the previous man was someone she simply didn't know how to handle on her own. Albert expresses his relief that nothing happened, but his tone suggests he has more on his mind. He warns her not to stray from her brother's side, as some people can get out of hand in such settings. Marie explains that her brother, Lord Stanley, seems far too busy with a secret tryst to watch over her. She mentions her plan was simply to head home alone when the time was right. Albert insists it would be troublesome if she were bothered again and offers to walk her to the carriage queue. Surprised by his kindness, she asks if he isn't supposed to be on patrol duty. The conversation is interrupted as the music drifting from the hall suddenly changes. Albert asks if she recognizes the melody, his eyes searching hers for a reaction. Marie remembers it as the song Rosemary used for her dance practices, a tune she once performed for Albert. She looks at Albert's outstretched hand as the familiar music fills the air. He asks for just a small moment of her time as the song continues. Marie beams at him, asking if he would like to dance with her to this particular song. The two share a silent, meaningful look before their hands meet. Albert accepts her invitation with pleasure, taking her hand to lead her into the dance. They begin to move together, surrounded by a shared history and the beauty of the night. Marie is impressed, telling Albert that he is actually a very good dancer. She playfully notes that from what she remembers, he was much stiffer when he danced with Rosemary. Blushing, Albert admits he has practiced, though he still doesn't think he's great at it. He deflects the praise, insisting that Marie is the truly skilled one. Marie modestly claims she can't judge herself, having only ever danced with her father and brother. The mood shifts as Albert begins to mention something he saw earlier in the evening. He tells her that he saw her dancing alone together with Reinhard. Marie looks at him with a puzzled expression, waiting for him to finish his thought. Albert looks away, his face etched with a complicated, unreadable emotion. The chapter ends on a cliffhanger as Marie remains focused on Albert's mysterious reaction. A solo violinist plays a soulful melody, the music notes drifting through the air as the performance reaches its peak. Marie reacts with surprise as the music shifts, her companion looking on with a steady, watchful gaze. A gentleman suggests heading toward the main gate as the event begins to wind down. The perspective shifts to a grand, gated estate where a carriage waits along a stone-lined path. A horse-drawn carriage stands ready as a group of individuals gather for a final departure. The group calculates their departure, noting that 3 carriages are ahead and they will be the 4th called. Captain Albert explains that his duties are finished once he sets the posts and assignments for his men. Marie asks if he spoke with the other knights, but he admits he only greeted a few briefly at the venue. A sentimental reminder is shared that everyone back home is eagerly waiting for Marie to return. Marie reflects on the staff shortages, noting with a heavy heart that even Nikki has left. A sense of deep internal conflict washes over Marie as she contemplates her uncertain future. Marie weighs her 3 paths: returning to her hometown, serving the Rose domain, or working as a maid under Albert. She realizes that her family and Reinhard, the new chancellor, have left this life-altering choice entirely up to her. Memories of the ball surface, including the knight's pleas for her return and Mr. Lieber's invitation for tea. Marie clenches her eyes shut, feeling the immense pressure of everyone's expectations and her own growing worry. Albert notices her distress and gently asks what is wrong, while Marie senses a final, unspoken option. Her troubled expression becomes obvious, causing a moment of awkward silence between the two. Marie finally admits she is conflicted about what steps to take next in her life. Under the glow of a full moon, Albert listens intently to her confession of uncertainty. Albert confirms her struggle is about where she will live, and Marie mentions there is one more thing. Blushing deeply, Marie confesses that she is reaching the age where she must start thinking about marriage. She worries that finding someone at court or in the Rose domain would take her far from her roots. The thought of living far away from the Enigma domain fills her with a sense of impending loneliness. Marie admits she hasn't quite let go of her home, feeling a lingering attachment to her past. Albert looks on as Marie realizes that asking a partner to move to the countryside would be a massive request. Embarrassed, Marie laughs off her rambling, apologizing for talking as if she already had a suitor in mind. Suddenly, a voice calls for Lady Marie Enigma, prompting her to rush off toward her summons. Before leaving, Marie offers a sincere smile and thanks Sir Albert for listening to her worries. As she turns to go, Albert reaches out a hand and calls her name, stopping her in her tracks. Marie pauses and looks back in surprise, her eyes wide at the sudden interruption. The two stand facing each other, Albert holding her hand firmly as the atmosphere turns serious and charged. With a resolute gaze, Albert speaks the words that change everything. With me. He delivers a stunning proposal, asking Marie if she will marry him right then and there. Marie stands frozen in total shock, her mind struggling to process the unexpected offer. The story shifts to a side log featuring Stanley Enigma, a country baron's son with a restless spirit. Stanley informs his father that he is bored to death in the sticks and is moving to the capital. Years later, Stanley successfully finds work in the capital, carving out a new life for himself. With sky-high self-esteem, Stanley boasts that he might even become chancellor within 10 years. Stanley welcomes his little sister Marie to live with him, glad to have the family connection in the city. He plays the part of the reliable big brother, though he finds Marie to be quite a handful. Stanley is stunned to learn that powerful figures like Duke Ronaldo Rose and Captain Albert want to visit. Terrified of the responsibility, Stanley asks Marie since when she developed such huge and potentially troublesome connections. A flashback shows a high-ranking noble expressing a great debt of gratitude toward Marie for her help. The noble praises her, stating that Marie has done truly excellent work for their cause. A diagram illustrates Marie's massive network, including a duke, a captain, and even Prince Rizur. Stanley grows pale, jokingly accusing his sister of being so ambitious that she is aiming for the throne. Determined not to be outshone, Stanley vows to prove himself as a capable big brother for once. His plans are foiled when he finds that Marie has already handled the shopping, cleaning, gardening, and mending. Stanley invites Lord Rose and Lord McLean to play a popular countryside board game called Tiresias Horse Inn. The men agree to play, noting that the game brings back nostalgic childhood memories. The game concludes with Lord Rose taking ST place, Lord McLean ND, and Stanley coming in RD. Stanley smugly claims he lost on purpose so the guests could have fun, though Marie is skeptical. Marie admits that her brother is competent despite looking lazy, but warns him not to overdo it. Stanley remains baffled by Marie's sudden burst of energy and productivity around the house. He marvels at his own talent and connections, realizing life would be too easy if Marie cared for him forever. Stanley continues to aim for an easy life, while Marie realizes she worried about his transition for nothing. The scene returns to the present intensity, with Albert and Marie blushing furiously as they lock eyes. With absolute conviction and a face full of color, Albert repeats his life-changing question, "Will you marry me?" Marie can only stare back in silent amazement, her eyes wide as the weight of his proposal sinks in. The moment is so overwhelming that the perspective shifts to a closed door, signaling a private turning point. The exterior of the grand estate stands silent under the night sky, holding the secret of the proposal within. The interior of the room is quiet, a single chair and a lamp set against the window as Marie reflects. Marie collapses onto her bed, completely drained and reeling from the emotional roller coaster of the evening. She buries her face in her hands, letting out a muffled scream of disbelief at the day's events. Marie chides herself for lying down in a dress but remains utterly overwhelmed by the shocking turn of her fate. Albert's sudden and desperate marriage proposal to Lady Marie Edigma leaves everyone in the vicinity completely stunned and speechless. Back at the guard station, a flushed and mortified Albert hides his face in his hands, unable to process his own impulsive actions. Fellow guards gossip about the captain's strange behavior, noting he hasn't been the same since returning from his recent security detail. Albert's adjutant, Eva, approaches him with concern, offering to listen to any problems he might be facing without hesitation. With a look of pure shock, Albert confesses to Eva that he ended up proposing to someone. The revelation hits Eva like a physical blow, leaving him and the other guards frozen in absolute disbelief. Albert collapses onto the table in a fit of regret, wailing about the inappropriate place and timing of his unintended confession. The guards are shaken by the captain's shift in tone, noting that he even abandoned his formal watashi for the more casual or. When Eva presses for the identity of the lucky lady, Albert blushes deeply and reveals it was Lady Marie Edigma. Eva and the guards immediately understand, recognizing that Marie's charm and kindness make her the perfect match for the captain. Overwhelmed by shame and the desire to turn back time, Albert continues to slam his head against the table in despair. Eva feels a sudden surge of duty, vowing to support his captain's love life with every ounce of his being. Striking a dramatic pose, the adjutant declares that he has a plan and tells Albert to leave everything to him. Albert remains slumped over, still processing the chaos of his emotions while Eva prepares to take action. Elsewhere, Marie notes her brother Reinhard's high energy even after the ball before he departs for work. Reinhard heads out the door, leaving Marie to manage the household on her own. Marie realizes she is low on dinner supplies and decides to head into town for ingredients. She explains that the Digma family lives a thrifty life without maids, requiring her to handle all the daily chores. Despite their status, Marie takes pride in helping her brother run their modest household through various chores. Marie walks through the bustling capital, blending in with the common folk as she begins her errands. She notices a massive crowd gathered around a stall and wonders what could possibly be attracting so much attention. To her surprise, she finds a street vendor selling high-quality portraits of famous figures. Women in the crowd excitedly discuss purchasing portraits of King Rizuru, Lord Reinhard, and even Sir Albert. The vendor showcases various sketches, including a handsome depiction of Reinhard and images of King Rizuru from his younger days. Marie's heart skips a beat when she spots a particularly striking portrait of Albert among the collection. She gazes at the image, her mind racing back to the moment of his sudden proposal. Blushing furiously, Marie wonders if his proposal was a joke or if she even knows how to answer him. She concludes that a man as serious as Albert wouldn't joke about marriage, sending her into a panicked state of blushing. Her internal monologue is interrupted by the sudden appearance of Sir Eva, who greets her warmly. Eva is known as the Demon Adjutant, due to his hellish training drills, serving as Albert's loyal right hand. While he is terrifying to his soldiers, he is famously kind to the maids who work within the order. Marie remembers how he took great care of her during her time serving as a maid for the Night Order. Eva explains that he has been searching for her, while Marie politely asks if there is something he needs. He notices her looking at the portraits and mentions he was about to visit her home to try his luck. With a friendly smile, Eva pulls out a portrait of Albert and offers it to her directly. He insists she take it, claiming a portrait of the captain acts as a powerful charm for protection. Eva then shifts the mood, telling her there is something important he actually needs to discuss. Marie listens curiously as the adjutant prepares to make a formal and surprising request. He appeals to her for the sake of the order, speaking with a heavy heart about their current situation. Eva drops a bombshell, asking Marie if she would return to work as a maid for the Night Order. Marie is taken aback, realizing that his request has nothing to do with Albert's romantic proposal. The memory of Albert's, "Will you marry me?" flashes in her mind, contrasting sharply with Eva's professional request. Eva explains that the palace is in absolute chaos with King Rizuru's new administrative procedures. He reveals that the laundry, cleaning, and cooking have become a mess, forcing even the busy captain to do daily chores. Marie is moved by the thought of Albert working himself to the bone for the order's sake without any rest. She remains flustered as the echoes of Albert's marriage proposal continue to ring in her head. Eva pleads his case, stating that the entire order has concluded that Marie's return is an absolute necessity. He emphasizes that everyone trusts her and that her skills as a maid are second to none. Eva is certain that having her there would surely cheer up the worn-out captain. Marie tries to decline the pay increase he offers, but Eva insists they will pay her more than before. She mentions she has already received a retirement sum from the state and isn't worried about the money. Marie realizes she is currently on break from her work at the Rose Domain and actually has free time. She smiles and tells Eva that if they are truly all right with it, she will accept the offer. Overjoyed by her answer, Eva grabs her hands and thanks her profusely for saving the order. The deal is sealed with a firm handshake, marking Marie's official return to the Night Order. Marie reflects that she was feeling idle anyway and Reinhard had asked her to stay in the capital until Albert's ennoblement. She hopes that by returning as a maid, she can truly be of some help to the struggling Albert. Eva celebrates his success internally while Marie resolves to eventually talk to Albert about his proposal. In the distance, Albert sneezes, unaware that his adjutant has just successfully recruited his love interest. A final, detailed image of the handsome Reinhard serves as a reminder of the noble world Marie is re-entering. Eva reflects on the mountain of palace paperwork and arrangements he has managed to clear. He proudly declares to himself that he, Eva, has taken care of every single detail. He informs a startled Marie that he has already arranged for her to begin serving as a maid tomorrow. Marie politely thanks him and says she looks forward to working together before Eva takes his leave. Left alone, Marie lets out a long sigh as the door clatters shut, bracing herself for the busy days ahead. Marie anxiously contemplates her imminent return to work, wondering if she still possesses the skills required for the task. A sudden knock at the door interrupts her thoughts as Ronaldo arrives, announcing he has come to join her for dinner. While eating, Ronaldo mentions running into Vice Captain Eva from the Night Order just outside the house. Marie offers a bright, cheerful smile as she listens to the account of the Vice Captain coming by to offer a greeting. The atmosphere shifts into a moment of quiet reflection as Marie listens intently to Ronaldo's words. Marie reveals her plan to return to the Night Order in the role of a maid starting the very next day. She explains they were merely finalizing the arrangements, prompting Ronaldo to ask if something occurred with Albert. Marie is momentarily caught off guard by the question, asking for clarification on what he means by something. Ronaldo leans in with a knowing look, asking if Albert perhaps confessed that he likes her. Blushing deeply, Marie quickly denies the suggestion, insisting that nothing of that sort took place. Inwardly, she recalls receiving a proposal but reasons that it wasn't a genuine confession of romantic love. She convinces herself that Albert only spoke those words of marriage to keep her from worrying about her age. Gripping her fist, she desperately tells herself they were just kind words intended to smooth things over. Ronaldo watches her reaction closely, concluding that his suspicion about her and Albert was correct after all. He notes it is only natural to assume something happened given how Eva has been rushing around to see her. Ronaldo bluntly guesses that Albert likely tried to make a romantic move but completely botched the execution. Marie is stunned by his perception while realizing Eva must have acted solely for the sake of her captain. Ronaldo finishes his wine, remarking that the night order has effectively stolen her away thanks to a loyal subordinate. He sets his glass down and reassures her that it is fine because she made the choice for herself. Offering a gentle, supportive smile, he tells her he has absolutely no reason to oppose her decision. Deeply moved by his kindness, Marie bows her head and offers Ronaldo her sincere thanks. She expresses gratitude because despite his high position, he allows her the freedom to choose her own path. Ronaldo reaffirms his stance, stating he has nothing more to add to a decision that is hers alone to make. Marie looks at him with warmth, feeling a deep sense of being respected by Ronaldo. The conversation takes a turn as the meal continues, marked by the presence of a used plate and cutlery. Marie asks if there has been any news regarding the current whereabouts of Queen Tia. Ronaldo sighs, admitting they have no leads because the woman is meticulous and never leaves loose ends. He explains that her social web is far more intricate than they anticipated, making her trail nearly impossible to trace. With a look of grim determination, Ronaldo expresses his desire to bring this entire ordeal to a quick conclusion. A heavy silence falls between the two as they stand by the fireplace, lost in the weight of their situation. Ronaldo breaks the silence by calling out Marie's name as he moves toward her. He approaches her with a gentle expression, bridging the distance between them in the quiet room. Ronaldo explains that just as her happiness was once his sister's wish, his wish is for her to be happy now. He reflects on the fact that even though she has been reborn as Marie, that fundamental wish remains unchanged. He takes her hands in his, looking at her with a mix of affection for the sister she was and the person she is. Ronaldo leans down toward her, earnestly advising her to always act true to her own heart. He stares into her eyes, emphasizing the importance of being honest with herself above all else. He warns her never to endure suffering the way she did in her past life as his sister. His tone turns fierce as he vows to destroy anyone who dares to block the path she chooses. He pledges to use everything he has to remove anyone who dares to trouble her heart. Marie is struck by the sheer strength of his words and the intensity of his protection. She realizes that if it is Ronaldo making this promise, he is someone who would truly carry it out. He promises that unlike her time as Rosemary, nothing will be allowed to stand in her way now. Marie gazes up at him, her eyes wide with the realization of the freedom and security he is offering her. A memory surfaces of her past life, where she submissively agreed to her father's demand to become queen. In the present, she smiles through her tears while Ronaldo asks his sister if she is all right. He dismisses his concern as nothing, though his expression betrays the depth of his protective feelings. Marie reflects on how she spent her entire past life in total obedience to her father's will. She recognizes that Ronaldo remembered her past pain and was genuinely concerned for her well-being. Tears stream down her face as she thanks him for caring so much for her sake. Ronaldo watches her with a soft, bittersweet smile, acknowledging the emotional weight of their shared history. The front door suddenly swings open as Albert calls out Marie's name, startling the two inside. Albert stands in the doorway, awkwardly explaining that he found the front door unlocked before offering a greeting. Ronaldo prepares to leave, telling Marie to lock up while smugly asking Albert if it is now his turn. The two men lock eyes in a brief, silent moment of intense rivalry and unspoken understanding. Ronaldo makes his exit through the door, leaving Albert and Marie alone in the entryway. Albert explains he heard from Eva about her return tomorrow and simply came by to say hello. He looks down, stating that he is looking forward to working with her again starting the next day. The exterior of the house stands silent under the night sky as the conversation continues inside. Blushing furiously, Marie brings up the proposal he previously made, looking incredibly flustered. She tries to laugh it off, suggesting he only said it out of kindness and consideration for her. Albert interrupts her with a serious expression, firmly stating that his consideration was not the reason he said it. Marie looks at him in shock as he prepares to voice his true feelings once and for all. Albert declares from his heart that he truly cherishes her and meant every single word he spoke. Marie is left speechless, her eyes shimmering as the weight of his sincere confession finally sinks in. A man with short, spiky hair stares forward with a soft, blushing expression. The man gently asks for time to think about his request, offering a warm and patient smile. With a final, "See you tomorrow," the man politely takes his leave from the stunned woman. A wide shot captures the woman standing in the doorway as the man walks away into the bright daylight. The woman remains frozen in shock, her face flushed deep red with wide, trembling eyes. Title card, Chapter, The Knight Captain Wants to Be Admired. The woman adjusts her clothing and prepares herself outside a large, stone building. She double-checks her outfit, ensuring every detail of her uniform is perfect. Flashing a bright, determined smile, she completes her final mental preparations. Starting today, she takes a deep breath and readies herself to re-enter her workplace. She enters a grand hall and is immediately spotted by a group of waiting knights. Walking with renewed purpose, she reflects on the beginning of her new days as a Knight Order maid. The knights rush toward her with excitement, calling out, "Lady Marie," in a warm welcome. Marie is touched and surprised that the knights she worked with before still remember her so clearly. The trio of knights, Mr. Geen, Mr. Uru, and Mr. Zerel, happily greet her after her long absence. The knights mention her attendance at the coronation, leading to an awkward moment of shared memories. Marie laughs as she acknowledges how hard they all worked on security during that busy day. The atmosphere remains light-hearted as the group continues their friendly reunion. Surrounded by the towering knights, Marie can't help but feel like a small child again. The knights gossip about the captain, noting he has been lonely since Marie left but should be in a better mood now. One knight teases the other to shut up as they discuss the captain's recent restless behavior. Marie blushes furiously, hiding her face in her hands as the weight of their words sinks in. She reels in disbelief, wondering if the captain actually admitted his feelings to others. Suddenly, the vice-captain looms over the group, startling the gossiping knights. The knights groan at the vice-captain's arrival, while he demands to know the reason for their ugh. Sir Eva threatens to dock their evaluations if they don't return to their stations immediately. The knights scatter in a panic, leaving Marie alone with the stern vice-captain. Sir Eva's expression softens as he warmly welcomes Marie back to the order. Marie thanks him nervously, still feeling a bit overwhelmed by the morning's events. Eva leans in to whisper that the captain has come into work today despite being off duty. He encourages Marie to go say hello before he heads off to his own duties. Marie remembers Ronaldo's cryptic words about her being stolen back to the order. She realizes that Eva and the others have orchestrated this entire situation to bring her back. Standing before a large door, Marie knocks softly and hears the captain's voice tell her to come in. She pushes the door open slowly, catching her breath as she enters the office. The captain stands by the window, looking out over the grounds with his back turned to her. He turns to greet her with a gentle, "Good morning," saying he'll be counting on her from today on. Marie beams with a radiant smile, telling him she is looking forward to working together. The captain reaches out his hand, his movements calm and deliberate. They share a quiet, meaningful look, the tension between them finally beginning to settle. The captain notes that even while on duty, things feel different than before. In a moment of vulnerability, he asks for permission to cherish her. Marie is left speechless and blushing at his sudden and intense sincerity. The door swings open again as Sir Eva interrupts the intimate moment. Eva stares at the captain with an unimpressed and weary expression. He scolds the captain for abusing his authority and disrupting workplace discipline. Eva ignores the awkwardness and begins collecting documents, telling Marie not to mind them. Marie looks at the captain and reflects on how much has changed compared to before. She realizes that her life as a maid in this order is going to be quite different this time around. Title page, Episode, Ronaldo's New Plan. A flashback or memory reveals the captain's blunt confession, "I like you, Marie." The memory intensifies as the captain asks Rosemary to marry him, professing his love. Marie wakes up in bed, gasping for air and clutching her chest. She realizes it was a dream, noting that it's been 2 weeks since she returned to the maid staff. Marie settles into her routine, working alongside Alberto and getting used to the environment again. She notes that Alberto still flirts quite a bit during their breaks. The other knights are constantly hyped, pushing the captain and Marie together at every opportunity. Knights gossip about how cool and brave the captain was during yesterday's expedition. Marie feels overwhelmed, realizing she now knows 100 times more about Albert than the nation itself. She hides her blushing face, admitting it's no wonder she's having dreams about him given the constant talk. Elsewhere, the captain sneezes, completely unaware of the captain hype his subordinates are creating. The morning begins in the grand corridors with staff and knights exchanging pleasantries. The scene shifts to the bustling dining hall as the staff prepares for the morning meal. Marie enjoys a delicious court breakfast of ishigama bread and vegetable soup. As she eats, she looks out the window, watching the busy life of the castle continue. Ronaldo arrives at the estate in a horse-drawn carriage during the early morning hours. Stepping out of the vehicle, the exhausted traveler exhales a weary sigh. Marie watches from a distance, shocked to see Ronaldo returning so early in the day. She notices the carriage bears the crest of the Rose domain and wonders if he made the round trip in a single day. Ronaldo stands alone for a moment, his expression unreadable as he gathers himself. Looking up toward the building, he suddenly realizes he is being watched. Marie is startled when their eyes meet through the window. A soft smile breaks across Ronaldo's face as he acknowledges her presence. He makes a welcoming gesture, signaling for Marie to come down and meet him. Marie quickly finishes her breakfast, determined not to keep him waiting. After clearing her plate, she offers a polite word of thanks for the meal. Ronaldo apologizes for the intrusion, feeling guilty for calling upon Marie at such an early hour. He explains that he rode all night from the Rose domain to handle an urgent matter. Marie asks how his work with the order is progressing, and he notes that everyone has been very kind. Ronaldo mentions that Captain Arda has been particularly helpful during his recent tasks. Since Marie is heading to work, Ronaldo suggests waiting in the dining hall together. Marie asks if he has eaten yet, but Ronaldo admits he hasn't had the chance. He invites Marie to his room, offering to make tea while he catches up on a quick meal. Marie happily agrees, excited for the rare opportunity to speak with him. They settle into a room filled with books where Ronaldo's desk is buried under stacks of paperwork. Ronaldo begins eating sandwiches so he can continue working without taking a full break. The sheer volume of documents on his desk resembles a mountain of unfinished business. Ronaldo notices Marie's tension and tells her to take it easy while he works. Marie struggles to relax, feeling overwhelmed by the intense atmosphere of his workspace. Concerned for his well-being, she asks if he is even getting proper breaks amidst the national turmoil. Ronaldo reassures her that the chaos is temporary and he might even miss the excitement once things settle. Marie observes his calm demeanor and wonders if he actually enjoys the burden of his work. He claims that scheduled rest is just another part of the job he manages efficiently. Ronaldo casually mentions that he finally dealt with the individuals who insulted his sister. He drops a bombshell, announcing a plan to record his sister's achievements in a book and build her a memorial. Marie is speechless to learn he has already cleared these grand plans with the king. Ronaldo warmly tells Marie that he wants her to be there to see the memorial when it is finished. Marie tries to hide her shock, feeling that Ronaldo's intense devotion is becoming truly ridiculous.